Council will come to order. Where's Councilor Crowe? Here she comes. All right, I'm just waiting. We do have enough for a quorum. Good evening, everybody. All rise and salute the flag. We do have a guest. Wait, we do have the Boy Scouts. Excuse me, Weeblos, Troop 609. That will be getting a citation. So, as part of their process, we're going to ask them to also lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Council always needs help in this, so I figured why not we involve the next generation. So I will wait for the cue of the Weeblos. You ready?
Absolute.
Go ahead. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing. Oh, go ahead.
Scout sign, scout oath. On mic.
I will do my best to do my duty to guard my country and to obey the scout law, to help other people at all times, to keep myself physically strong. Trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent.
Very good. Thank you, Troop 609. Please remain standing for a moment of silence for those men and women who served this country and for those who gave the ultimate sacrifice. And if you could just stand up a little bit longer. Unfortunately, as I get older, I start to know more and more of these. Councilor Condon?
Yep, in Ward 2, we lost a young lady that I grew up with, and she's from a very, very big family, Ward 2 family. That's the reason why Jadine isn't here tonight. Her Aunt Linda passed away, and she will be missed. It's Basil's sister, Regano, Nancy, Debbie. They lived on the same street I grew up in, and they're just a good family. So I'd like to offer a moment of silence.
Thank you. Clerk will call the roll.
Cologne Hayes. Here. Condon.
Here.
Crowe. Here. Linehan.
She's here.
I know she's here. Yeah. McDonald. Here. Murphy. Here. O'Malley. Here. Sika. Simonelli. Winslow. Spatafora.
Spatafora here. Thank you, everybody. Welcome back from summer recess. Hope everybody had a long, enjoyable summer. Went by too quick. And it seems like if you watch the weather, the next couple days are going to be turning into the fall pretty quickly in terms of weather pattern. So, next order of business.
We have two sets of minutes. Paper number 358-22, minutes for the meeting of June 28th, 2022. I forgot public comment like I always do because it's not in there, but okay. So public comment, I did have one person sign up on the sheet. And we have 4 letters.
So we'll do, since the individual's here to speak publicly, if you could just come forward, state your name and address for the record. I will turn on the mic if you give me 1 second. There you go, ma'am.
Casey Leon McDougall, 34 Glenmere Ave. As a lifelong resident of Malden, I'd like to voice my opinions on the following agenda items. 373-22 regarding the city solicitor. I do not support this item as I feel that Councilor O'Malley, who is a law student, is trying to position himself to become a city solicitor. This position should not be an elected position. Regarding 374-22, Roosevelt Park, the city would benefit greatly by installing a turf field at Roosevelt Park, but I do not think this needs to be placed on the 2023 municipal ballot, as enough time has been given for a decision to be made. As a former Malden athlete, the issues of park conditions date back to my childhood. I remember games being canceled due to the conditions of this field, and now my 10-year-old son deals with this on many fields throughout the city. Seeing the heartbreak these kids go through on sunny days when they expect to play is unacceptable. Having a turf field accessible to all children will give these young athletes an opportunity to play under great quality conditions, regardless of their financial status, as many cannot afford to play at the club level. Regarding 375-22, the charter school, I do not support doing away with the charter school. If we do away with it, what is the plan for Malden students who attend the charter school? Public school teachers are already picketing. Schools are already overcrowded. Regarding 379-23, council respect. I am in support of this item as I have family members and people I consider family who work diligently for our city who shouldn't have to worry about retaliation, threats, or intimidation for doing their job. I have witnessed Councilor O'Malley treat city employees as well as council members with unacceptable behavior. His childish commentary on social media includes beratement from the person who moderates the city's Facebook page up to and including the mayor. I believe this is a start to rectifying his poor behavior. Thank you for your time, and I will be finishing this meeting from home so I can put my little guy to bed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else willing to speak? Any comments? Okay, we do have, I will take the executive. Thank you. So we do have 4 letters to be read into the record. I sat with the clerk like I usually do before the meeting and go through any public comment. There is one that I'm going to not ask to be read into the record and make some disparaging remarks against the counselor here. And for those, it's not me, so I'm not trying to preclude that, but we have decorum in our book, and I will not allow, I believe everybody should have an opinion, but the way these words were put on the page, I don't think it's good for anybody. But I will circulate that to the rest of the council, and if you feel like you want to read it, we can read it, but personally, I wouldn't allow this person to say that if they were here. So I'm going to give the 3 to the clerk and let them read that. And I will pass the 4th paper, which is this one, to my left, and you guys can read that. And if you decide to want to read into the record, you can. But again, we have to act accordingly to each other, and just have criticism's not a problem, but when you take a method like that, I don't think it's fair to all the councilors, just not the individual pointed out. Thank you. Clerk?
So the first letter is, Dear Clerk Lucy, I respectfully request our letter to be read into the record. Thank you. I write today in full support of paper 374-22, order that the City of Malden place a ballot question on the 2023 municipal ballot asking, should the City of Malden install an artificial turf field at Roosevelt Park by the Salem Wood School? A yes vote would support artificial turf, a no vote would reject artificial turf and support a grass field. It is my hope the City Council recognizes the voters and voices of our community in this matter, and their vote this evening is the impetus of moving forward. Put it on the ballot. Thank you. Debbie and Al D. Maria, 144 Maple Street, Malden, Mass. Dear Clerk Lucy, I apologize for not being at this evening's meeting as I have to attend a funeral service for my beloved aunt. Could you please read the following email during public comment, as I would like to go on the record of being opposed to the following papers. Paper 373-22, regarding the city solicitor being an elected position. When I saw this on the docket, and while I cannot understand the motive, and I'm opposed to some pretty simple reasons, and for that reason, I believe we should simply vote this paper down. Number 1, the city solicitor position must be a person who needs to have a very special skill set, which includes but is not limited to very specific education, experience, internal and external management experience. For example, not only managing an internal team, but also picking and working with outside experts and needing relationships, soft skills. For such positions that are not simply generalists, any organization must have a specific deliberative process determining the most important skills needed for any such an important position leading any department at that particular time. That process would involve leaning on a human resource department to create a clear, specific job description that management, in this case, the chief executive of the city, the mayor, and the city council, the hiring body, determines is most important. 3, also in determining such a person, the fact they would lead other people that have very specific technical skills, one must consider the critical importance that such a person hired must be respected by the high-knowledge workers they are expected to lead and manage. Keep in mind that in a small department of attorneys that Malden has, it is expected that the solicitor is not only a manager, but also one who rolls up their sleeves and defends the city in many cases. As an example, a very recent case that our former solicitor defended successfully was the case brought against our appeals board on upholding their ability to legally deny a petition for a variance to our ordinance on marijuana buffer zones. Our solicitor, with the help of a small in-house team, wrote and defended the city successfully. Experience and skills matter. Popularity to the public, not popularity of the issue at hand today and tomorrow, have nothing to do with it. Understanding and applying the rule of law must. Number 4, only the determining of those needs and collectively determined, as we went through a number of times on the treasurer's positions, for instance, another very technical specific skill area, would we proceed with gathering resumes and conducting detailed and multiple interviews to get the best candidate. Please keep in mind our departments aren't thousands of people where an elected official can simply come in and delegate all the responsibility. Our treasurer, controller, city engineer, building inspector, etc., because of our size, are people who all must not only manage, but must have great detailed skills about the areas, because often they must be the people who actually do the work. There is perhaps no more important position than city solicitor when it comes to limiting a city's financial exposure to legal issues that could cost tens of thousands of dollars, if not millions. In a city of this size, just like we would not expect the public to elect a controller or a treasurer, it would be beyond unwise to turn a position as critical as the city solicitor into an elected popularity contest. One I might keep in mind, the solicitor, if the solicitor were elected, no matter how bad a person might be or perform, the city would be stuck with that person for at least 6 years, and because it would be an elected position, the person would simply, by its very nature, have to focus on continually raising money, creating many potential conflicts of interest, and have to be concerned with being popular, not simply defending the city against all situations, popular and unpopular. For these reasons, I request that we must reject this paper. Also, paper 375-22, charter school ballot question. As you all know, I am a person sitting here who did not send my children to a charter school, but I do respect each parent's right to choose which school fits their child and their family's education philosophy best. For those of us who have had children, there are a few things that are as important to us as deciding the education of our children. Beyond that, the city is currently, to my knowledge, in good faith negotiations with Mystic Valley regarding the use of their property in Maplewood, and passing such a paper during that time could be construed as violating the good faith, the portion of that agreement with the city. I am not an attorney, but simply sitting here, and I ask myself, what would a reasonable person believe if the city were to proceed with putting such a question on the ballot, particularly when it cannot be binding on any decision made on any charter school in Mass. Popularity of a school by the general public is not something that determines whether a charter school gets to open or stay open. Putting such a question on the ballot, in fact, might be taken as a public relation attack on the school and put the city in a precarious situation, given it is in the middle of an agreement trying to work out a very important issue with the city. I certainly defer the letter to Councilor Winslow, who is the ward council and an attorney, as to how this might be perceived, both by the school and in a legal context. I think for this reason the paper should be rejected. Feelings about the school should be set aside, as there is much broader considerations. Thank you for the time. G.D. and Seeker, Ward 8 Council. The third letter is the Friends of Roosevelt Park believe in democracy and participation. We will be discussing the possibility of a ballot question on Monday, September 19th, at our community participation meeting, which will take place at City Hall and on Zoom at 7:00 p.m. It is time for Malden voters to vote for a moratorium on artificial turf across the city. Choice provides transparency and public accountability, both important to such a big issue as environmental justice for all the stakeholders excluded from decision-making around Roosevelt Park, including the adjacent neighbors in the Salemwood school community. If our public officials want to protect our public living green spaces from destruction, then perhaps the community should be given the opportunity to have a decision-making power. We urge Malden residents to attend the meeting on Monday to learn more about the dangers of artificial turf and the viable natural green alternatives which will satisfy the need for recreational use, as well as the real and measurable concerns surrounding urban heat island effects, climate change resilience, neighborhood livability, and most importantly, doing what is right for the health and future of our children. Kathleen Sullivan, Friends of Roosevelt Park.
That's it. That's it, right? Yep. All right, next order of business. Approval minutes, right?
Yeah, now we'll go to the minutes. We have two sets of minutes. Paper 358-22, minutes for the meeting of June 28, 2022, and paper 359-22, minutes of the meeting of August 9, 2022.
I didn't see any emails about any corrections, right? Anybody have any edits, motions? Okay. Counselor, on both, Counselor? On both. All right, so on Counselor, second and vote, okay, on Counselor Winslow's motion to approve minutes of the 28th, June 28th, and August 9th of 2022, seconded by Counselor Condon. All in favor? All opposed? Ayes have it, 11-0. Next order of business. Approval of the minutes. 10-0. Oh, who am I missing? JD, that's right, I'm sorry.
Paper 360-22, mayoral reappointment. George Lasky of 52 Blue Hill Avenue is a member of the Conservation Commission. Said term to commence upon confirmation by the City Council and to expire on September 15, 2024. Confirmation is required.
On Councilor Simonelli's motion to refer the, okay. I don't think you can say that publicly, but that's fine. There's rules against that. But let me turn your mic on first. Councilor Simonelli.
Thank you, Mr. President. George Lasky sitting out in the audience. I seen him. He's on the Conservation Committee. He's been on the Conservation Committee for many years. Is that better, Mr. President? And, you know, George does a great job. And like we had talked about before, it's a reappointment. And I would like to not bog down the committee and reappoint him on the floor, Mr. President. Thank you.
Okay. Do we need a second? Councilor O'Malley. Sorry. Looking to my right. Councilor O'Malley.
So I would second Councilor Simonelli's motion. George, you have done a great job on the Conservation Commission. You're one of the hardest working committee members we have in the entire city. The wealth of information that you have is unparalleled when it comes to the history of Malden. I'm really proud to support this being approved on the floor.
Thank you, Councilor O'Malley. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, any other questions, discussion? Okay, so I have Councilor Simonelli's motion to approve Mr. George Lasky, which we all know. He's been here for several years. Seconded by Councilor O'Malley. All in favor? All opposed? Looks like there's no no, so 10-0. George, reappointment. Congratulations.
Congratulations, George.
Next order of business.
Paper 361-22, mayoral reappointment. Isaac Slavitt of 14 Delano Street as a member of the Conservation Commission. Said term to commence upon confirmation by the City Council and to expire on September 5th, 2024.
Okay, on Councilor Simonelli's motion, do you want to do on the floor?
Sure. Another guy that's been
Well,
on the...
so it's your committee, so Councilor Simonelli for the paper.
Thank you, Mr. President. Once again, this is a guy that's been on this committee, does a wonderful job. It's a reappointment. Again, I don't want to have to keep repeating this. I think we agreed last time that we were going to, unless there's a problem, we're going to appoint on the floor on the night of the reappointment for people that are reappointments. New appointments, obviously, are going to come to the committee. Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah. Second.
Councilor O'Malley?
Again, I would...
And then hold on, Councilor O'Malley, Councilor Winslow had it first, I'm sorry. Councilor Winslow? These are not my glasses.
Yeah.
And then I'll go to you, Councilor.
Yeah, I just like to
Winslow.
second that one as well. You know, Isaac Slavitt serving as the chair of the Conservation Committee and has also been very involved in working on the ARPA Committee on Water and Sewer work. So he's shown a lot of good, thoughtful approaches to the program. And I know we're talking about working to get bylaws. So I think it's great to have a mix of new as well as experienced people, and so it's a good mix. And he's been doing a great job as chair of the Conservation Commission. So I gladly second that. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Winslow. Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you. Yeah, I also will support approving this on the floor. Isaac is a very hard worker, and he's really done a great job leading the helm. One thing I will say, both to George and Isaac, I would love to see the Concom be more proactive and a little bit more of a bully when it comes to applicants coming before them, making sure that we provide public access where possible, and getting those bylaws passed as soon as possible to give the Concom more authority, I think would be amazing. So, I think that that you have the support of the council up here to take that direction, and we appreciate all the work that you do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay.
Motion.
Motion. On Councilor Simonelli's motion, seconded by Councilor Winslow to approve Mr. Slavic, reappoint Mr. Slavic, Isaac Slavic to the Confirmation Committee. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it, 10-0. Welcome back, Isaac. Reappointment to the Confirmation Committee. Next order of business.
Paper C 362-22, mayoral appointment, Paul Lee of 52 Lyle Street as a member of the License Board. Said term to commence upon confirmation by the City Council and to expire on June 1st, 2028, to fill the vacancy of Francis Lynn, who has stepped down from the board.
Councilor Simonelli, do you want to refer?
Motion to refer, yeah.
Okay, on Councilor Simonelli's motion to refer to the Personnel and Appointments Committee, all in favor? All opposed? Next order of business.
Paper 363-22, mayoral appointment, Megan Melanson of 47 Blaine Street as a member of the Cultural Council. Said term to expire July 25th, 2025. Megan will replace Gladys Montrose, who resigned from the council.
Motion to place.
Confirmation not required.
Sorry, too fast for you. Motion to place on file, Mr. President.
On Councilor Simonelli's motion to place on file, all those in favor? All those opposed? 10-0. Ayes have it. Items placed on file. Next order of business.
Paper 365-22, mayoral reappointment, Frank Senna of 120 Mountain Ave as a member of the Disability Commission. Said term to expire on September 23rd, 2025. Confirmation is not required.
Motion to place on file.
On Councilor Simonelli's motion to place on file, all those in favor? All those opposed? Items placed on file. Next order of business.
And I forgot about paper 364-22, mayoral appointment, Mary Darber of 11 Fairmont Court as a member of the Cultural Council. Said term to expire on July 25th, 2025. Mary will replace Ossie Schwab, who resigned from the council. Confirmation not required.
So before I go to council for the motion that we've all heard many times, just for those in the audience and those for watching at home, keeping score, the difference between these appointments and the previous appointments, council had the ability to appoint those other ones, council confirmation. These are the mayor's choices, so we really don't have a say, hence place on file. Councilor Simonelli.
Place on file, Mr. President.
On Councilor Simonelli's motion to place on file, all those in favor? All those opposed? Ayes have it. Item is placed on file. Next order of business.
We have, under petitions and hearings, we have paper 366-22, petition Massachusetts Electric Company, DBA National Grid, 1101 Turnpike Street, North Andover, Mass, WO work order number 306-301-87, Elwell Street, to install one SO pole beginning at a point approximately 15 feet from southwest of the center line of the intersection of Elwell Street and Loomis Street. Install a steel stub pole on the sidewalk at the intersection of Elwell Street and Loomis Street. New pole to support the pole line on Loomis Street. Hearing required.
Okay. All right, Moses. So this is a public hearing. So I'm gonna open up the public hearing. Actually, why don't I wait till you actually, you want to give us a rundown on the project? Let me turn your mic on, and then I'll go to Council Winslow, and then I'll open up the public hearing.
Okay. Good evening, councilors. My name is Moses Okokuro. I'm here on behalf of National Grid Electric side. My address is 170 Medford Street here in Malden. For this petition, National Grid is requesting to install a steel stub pole at the intersection of Elwell Street and Loomis Street. This is basically to support the existing pole line going into Loomis Street. Thank you.
Council Winslow, you have any questions, and then I'll open up the public hearing?
No, I did go out to the site with Moses, and the current situation is that as maybe many of you know, when you have poles at intersections often there's a pole that is like a stabilizing pole. In this instance, there was a big tree that was being used to stabilize the pole system. That tree has been taken down. So the purpose of this pole is to be the stabilizing pole that's replacing the cable that was attached to a tree. So it's pretty straightforward, and there's really we did meet with the immediate abutter, and they were fine. We were just so I don't have any issues with this particular approval. So thanks.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, I'm going to open up the public hearing portion of this meeting. I'd like to call the public hearing open on National Grid. All those who want to speak in favor, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. All those in favor who support this, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. All those who want to support this, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. Seeing none and hearing none, I deem that portion of the meeting closed. Anybody who wants to come and speak against this petition, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. Councilors, you got any questions or just a little background noise? Anybody else who wants to come forward and speak against this petition, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. Before I wind this down, I will ask my councilors and Moses, I sent an email to Faith, if you want to come back before I close out this portion, because I'm actually going to speak against it. So I did happen to grab Diana Cudley, her card today. So Faith, we lost Dan Cameron, who was, we didn't lose Dan Cameron, bad choice of words. Dan Cameron, who served the city of Malden, I think, for over 30 years as a representative for National Grid, retired. Exactly. He was working on his retirement. I have a triple pole, 1, 2, 3, on Pearl Street that's been there for 7.5 years.
What street?
Pearl Street. Okay. I have a picture in what was Tricker's old address on Pearl? 192 Pearl Street. Dan Cameron was working to get, I believe it's fiber off that pole. Unfortunately, the only time I ever get the ability to get poles taken down is when somebody needs a permit. The residents on that street have been waiting patiently for 7 years, and I thought one of the holdup was the city, because we had fire alarm. So I couldn't press the National Grid on that. But at this point, the only thing left on there, I believe, is fiber. I've reached out to Verizon, I've reached out to Faith, I've gotten nowhere, no replies. So before we give any permits, Moses, I want National Grid to take down not the 1 pole, but the 2 poles, and I have a picture on my phone. I'll be more than happy to show you. And if you guys can take that down in a week, I don't want to certainly ruin Council Winslow's neighborhood, but I would just defer this. If you guys can take that down soon, I would appreciate it. I just can't support a permit right now until I have those 2 poles that are standing up in Pearl Street removed, because not only is it an eyesore, it really is an ADA compliance issue now, because it's on the corner of Pearl and Adams. So that would be me speaking against it. I'll give you I can show you a photo. If you got your card, I can email you everything, but I did catch up with Diana tonight before she left. I just feel like sometimes we have to take the nuclear option and not approve a permit to get these things down. And it's unfortunate because we should be maintaining the system, but this is what, it burns me up from the inside when we have to do this.
Well, in this instance, I will go back and to verify who is actually still holding that pole from being, taken out. In some cases around here, we have what they call like jointly owned poles.
Correct, with Verizon.
Exactly. So we go ahead to transfer all our equipment, all our wires.
Yep.
And we expect other third-party attachment, attachees to take up their wires, transfer to the new pole. Verizon goes ahead to remove the double pole, as it were. But in some cases, they don't follow through. So we actually do our national grid. We actually are usually the first. We install the pole, do all the transfers. So it's usually left for all these third-party attachees. So, in this instance, I can go to find out, dig up to see who exactly has that, fiber optics, if that will help. Yeah,
and I'll let the other council speak, but it always amazes me when we do this, Moses. When I ask the National Grid representative to help me get the poles come down, a week later, the National Grid takes their stuff off. So when I've reached out to our contact at National Grid, I know them well, they sued us, and I didn't get a response. So what I'm asking is, I would vote against it, or at least delay this permit a week, and hopefully you can come back to us with an idea of getting down 3 poles. A double pole is one thing, 3 poles for 7 years is an issue. So, That's all I have to say.
Okay, I will do my best.
All right,
Thank you.
Councilor Karen Hayes.
Thank you. Actually, I'm sorry, I was going to ask you. Thank you, Moses, for coming here tonight and explaining a little about what's going on here. I just had a quick question before we say we're going to hold this up. When you say stabilizing, so if you're going to stabilize another pole, that's what this permit was for. What does that mean? Is anybody in danger if that pole isn't like stabilized?
Well, for every last pole, let's say we have a pole line, for every last pole, we do what we call guying. It's usually like, a down guy or a sidewalk structure, just to support the pole line from falling over. So in this instance, there's an existing pole to tree guy. It's like a metallic rope that holds the pole line. Now, the existing tree, the customer is taking out down that tree. So if we don't go back to stabilize that whole pole line may fall over. So we have to take more like a remedial action, and we need to do that as soon as possible.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the reason why. Yeah.
Thank you. That's my concern, just to make sure that, my concern is safety before we make a decision like that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yep.
Thanks. Stay right there, Moses. Councilor O'Malley.
Has the tree already been cut down?
Well, the top of the tree, yes.
But not the bottom.
No, exactly. And the customer is waiting on us to take out the metallic rope so they can take out the tree as well as the roots. Yep.
Yeah, because I think Ward 5 has a lot of these over into the cemetery. And I know I think on Bainbridge Street there's one. There's a lot of these across the city. So, and there's a lot of double poles and I guess triple poles. I wasn't aware of triple poles until tonight. I am not in favor of not acting on this, but how do you think that we should get a lot of these unresolved issues resolved? It sounds like our primary contact is who now, Councilor?
Well, I emailed Faith, is it Hassel, Hassel, on 8/29 and on 7/29, because Dan retired, I believe, right around the 4th. I haven't received an email back, and I've been waiting for you guys to come in, to be quite honest with you.
Well, when I get back to the office tomorrow, I can follow up with Faith. Yeah.
And Faith is Dan's replacement?
Yes.
Okay,
correct.
great.
Yep.
Councilor Spatafor, if you could share that contact information with the rest of us, that would be super helpful. Yeah, obviously you're hearing frustration. It would be great if we can get more of these like tree carcass poles and double poles resolved. But I will be in support because it sounds like really the only person that we would be hurting tonight is the property owner. And just make sure that there's a better working relationship between National Grid and the city. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions? Councilor Simonelli.
Thank you, Mr. President. I echo my colleagues' concerns with the double pole and triple pole, but I was on the council back in '98, my first time around, and it's been 10 years, and this has been an ongoing problem since '98. And I understand and empathize as far as not wanting to hurt the homeowner, but it seems like that National Grid only understands they only respond when we respond in a negative by not allowing you to move forward until you guys, like playing chess, which is quite ridiculous. Not your fault, obviously. Can't kill the messenger, right? But, this is something that's been ongoing. And, I don't know how long we're going to play this cat and mouse game, but I don't have the bandwidth for it this time around. So if you can get somebody to get in touch with the council president here so we can get a dialogue moving forward so we can, get to the bottom of some of these double, triple polls, and that would be productive. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councilor Murphy.
Am I on? Oh, yes.
You're on.
Hi, Moses.
I'm looking for the photo.
I'm very familiar with these polls. From what I just heard, though, this is not a safety issue at the moment because the bottom part of the tree is still standing and the line is still attached, so you do have the stabilization going on. Is that a correct statement?
Well, at the moment,
Yes.
as long as the customer permits us to leave that.
Right, well,
trigger,
we
yeah.
know that up Starboard and Plymouth, not Plymouth, Starboard and I'm having a thing. We have had a wire on a tree on private property for, I don't know, probably 18 months now that the customer would very much like to take down. So there are sometimes some delays, and I happen to be sitting here for as long as I have and having dealt with double poles and all these issues. I am in total agreement with Councilor Spatafora that waiting 2 weeks to get that triple pole taken down, or at least getting some resolution on it, is probably the way to go, because it really is the only leverage that we have. And it's not you, it's the back office. And I think that, when you come to us and you want something from us, we ask all the time for things to be taken care of and they're not done. So I think this is an opportune time for you to go back and say, once again, deliver the message that we have delivered to National Grid many times, that, we need to be heard, we need double poles taken care of, we need triple poles taken care of, and, we want to work with you in a, ongoing basis that's productive to both of us, but I do feel like most of the time, we're the ones always giving in, and we never get results on what we want. So I am going to support Councilor Spatafora in his denial of this request tonight. I think that, 2 weeks from now, you could come back with an answer and we could pass it. I don't think that that would be a hardship on anyone, and we might be able to resolve this issue. So we'll see how it goes.
Councilor,
Right now, as far as I'm concerned, it's not a public safety issue that we're, Councilor Cloney's just, so having dealt with these for a while, the stabilization line is there. And I have a number of them on Forest Street also, so.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. Councilor Winslow.
So my suggestion, I would make a motion to close the public hearing.
Yep.
And then move to table this for 2 weeks until we hear a
appreciate
response on, double and triple polling issues, particularly the one that Councilor Spatafora mentioned. So, thanks, good.
I have a list.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so if I may, I'll close out that, let me just close out this portion, and I can give an update to the council. So anybody else who's willing to speak against this petition, please come forward and state your name and address to the record. Going once, going twice. I deem that portion of the meeting closed. The public hearing is closed. I will now entertain Councilor,
List?
Yeah.
Hi, so there's a double pole on Mountain Ave and Tremont Street. It's on the northwest corner of Mountain Ave and Tremont Street. Yep. I would say if any other ward councilors or at-large councilors know of other double poles, now would be the time to mention them. That's the only one I have off the top of my head. Thank you.
So I happen to have a list. It's probably about 100 poles, Moses. So just for the benefit of the council, we can take that, we'll add that to the motion. So let's do the motion first. Well, let me just say this first because it might add to the motion. So one of the big culprits has always been the city being last to take down the fire alarm wire, right? Because we had our fire alarm wire when we had the pull boxes. We don't have the pull boxes anymore because we went wireless. So the access of the fire department has access to that double pole list. They've been taking down all their pieces of the pie. Then you have National Grid, Comcast, Verizon, and then you have those third-party fiber lines, right? So I asked for a list from the Chief Sullivan a couple weeks ago just because I wanted to see if it said triple pole. It doesn't say triple pole, it says double pole on Pearl Street. So there was another paper that it's probably coming up from Verizon to do a fiber cell. I'm in the same boat. I don't think we should do it until we get these. So for any of the councils who want a list, you can email Chief Sullivan and he can give you a list because they gave him access because of the fire alarm issue. FYI. So Councilor Crowe, I'll go back to Councilor Winslow as a motion. Councilor Crowe.
I am in total favor of
Yeah.
of the tabling petition. I did want to make another comment. On our agenda, on table papers, we have paper 253-22, which is National Grid wanting to put some ductwork for 80 feet across Commercial Street at Center Street. And so that was tabled, but that work was complete. That work was done. I just talked to the plates have been out there just the other day, and I asked Bobby what was going on, and he just confirmed again that was National Grid putting their ductwork in. So we need to figure out how, if there's a petition that was tabled and it wasn't taken off the table, I mean, I know you might have had work to do, but it was done even without permission. So I think it's a problem with the double poles and all of those things too. But this is not the first time that this has happened. It happened on Center Street previously. Or what was it? I think Center Street. Then things were happening when we had tabled it, or I had gone out there and met with a few people, and that was on Charles Street. And then it was done anyway. It was done anyway. So I don't know what the recourse is for that, but it is not a good working relationship if they're going to do it as it is. So I'm in total support of the tabling motion.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Crowe. Councilor Winslow.
Yeah, no, I'm making the motion to close the hearing and then table this pending further word on the polls at
Yep.
Adams Street and was it Mountain Ave? Tremont and Mountain Ave.
So on Council Winslow's motion to close the public, well, I think we closed it early, but I'll say it again, close the public hearing and also to table this motion for 2 weeks, Councilor?
Yep, 2 weeks, yep, sure.
I need a second. On Council Murphy's second, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you. Moses, FYI, so you got 2 weeks, right? That brings you to the 27th. There are papers coming out on October 4th from National Grid. That's what Diane was here for, and the clerk just alerted me that she'll be back October 4th. I would relay the message to Diane, too, that we need to see some movement on Council Winslow's poll and the Pearl Street poll, because if you come back October 4th, I'm going to say the same statement. Fair enough?
That's fine.
Thank you. And again, don't take it personally, Moses.
No, that's fine, it's okay. Yeah, can I respond to
You can
Peg's
respond,
comment?
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
Go
so
ahead,
I believe
Council.
for
Go ahead,
Charles
Moses.
Street, I believe we met on site with. Yeah, that was-
Hold on, Council, let me just, so you get the mic. There you go.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, I know on the Charles Street one, and that was when we wanted to run the lines. And they ended up running the lines underneath what we wanted, not the lines above. Except we had the conversation, and they were gonna go back and evaluate if they could put the lines underneath. And then I'm driving home one day, and they're out there doing the work. So it wasn't really approved, that was what we wanted, but again, it kind of jumped the gun until we have that. But this, the one that's on the table papers today, that's on Commercial Street and Center Street, near Midas, that's going across there, I noticed the plates out there. I was thinking, why are we doing work out here with all these buses going down from Orange Line? And I just confirmed with Bobby that it was National Grid doing their deck work underneath. So, again, it's, going ahead with things because they sat on the table.
Thank you, I can go back and ask, I'm actually not aware they've done that construction.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Moses, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for being a good sport. Okay, we skipped the Boy Scouts, sorry, excuse me, Weeblos, sorry. So we're gonna go to the Weeblos next. Yeah, they want us. Hold on one second, Weeblos. Okay, clerk, next order of business, we're gonna have the Weeblos. We're gonna present something to the Weeblos. You wanna read it? This is it right here? Oh. So we're gonna read this to you, and then we'll come by and actually, we'll ask the council to take a picture, if somebody in the room could take a picture, if that's fine. I'm channeling Council Anderson, that's what he used to do all the time. So, you have the presentation, but I will read it. The City of Malden of Massachusetts be hereby known that the entire Malden City Council offers its sincerest congratulations to Malden Troop 609. On behalf of the Malden City Council, we would like to congratulate you on all your achievements, the way you serve our community, in an honorable and impressive record of commitment. We wish you your continued success as you continue your journey, given this 13th day of September 2022, signed by Councilor Craig Spadafora and signed by Councilor Chris Simonelli, Ward 7. Councilor Simonelli, any words?
No, I just want to encourage you to continue doing the work that you do. I know Rick Pedro, I've known him for years, and you've been doing this for years, and I see you running around the neighborhood a lot, right? You at the end, and
You at the end.
and nice sneakers on that one there. So, but hey, listen, it's hard work, right? I mean, to be committed and have discipline and loyalty and all those things, especially in today's world. So I give you the thumbs up, and keep doing what you're doing and spread the message. Thank you.
We're gonna come down and take a picture, all right? All right, if we Yep.
We move all, but they don't fall down. I want to see who's brave enough to eat those biscottis while we're out here.
All right, thank you, everybody. All right, great job to the Weeblos. Thanks for coming. Yeah, that wasn't the right thing to do, no. Yeah, but still, that's why I wouldn't allow it. If you're not here saying it, you know, come in and say it. Okay, next order of business.
Paper 367-22, order be it hereby ordained, Section 9.20.040, Standards and Regulations for Commercial Waste on Municipal Code be amended by adding new Section 9.20.040C1E to include no dumpster shall be stored in the public way, including for purposes of pickup by the service provider, and I have a letter from the mayor to read.
Yeah, so can I just speak when you're ready? So I actually have been talking to the mayor, and anybody feel free to join. This was something that I've been noticing throughout the city, but what's really been bothering me is on Ward 3, some parts of Ward 3 on Summer Street, they've been doing it, certainly in the square where they're the roll-away dumpsters, they're rolling them into the sidewalk area, and it's creating not only a blockage for the pedestrians, but also it's unsightly and, you know, trash isn't clean. So there is leakage that goes on the sidewalks, and, you know, we spend a lot of money to maintain the sidewalks, not even just for safe passage, but certainly aesthetics. And some do a great job where they wheel them out just to get their trash, and then they wheel them back in. I don't want to name names, but there's been a couple particular that just wheel them out and put them on the sidewalk. It's unsightly, it's unruly, there's nothing that we can point to stop them. And then when we've asked them to move them a couple times, one in particular has been put them in parking spaces. So for me, it's just not the right thing because there are buildings that do it the right way. So this just gives us a little bit more ammunition. I know Councilor Crowe had some insight too, and I'll certainly go that around. The mayor wrote a letter in support too because he noticed it. So I'll go around to the councils first, then you can read the letter from the mayor if that's fair. So I have Councilor O'Malley first, and then Councilor Crowe.
I'd actually like to be added as a sponsor. Actually, there was a recent planning board meeting for a property that was being redeveloped on Salem Street, right next to the Central Fire Station, and they were proposing putting in toters. And I was very adamant asking the planning board to not allow that as a special permit condition because of the fact that they are not being properly maintained across the city. It's these like mid-sized dumpsters that are actually creating almost more waste and more rodent population than the traditional dumpsters. So in addition to putting this as a general ordinance, I think that I see we have the city planner here tonight. We might want to consider whether or not that has to be a zoning ordinance in addition to make sure that it's not being a standard when we give out special permits. I don't exactly know what the answer is, aside from, you know, I think by and large as a community, we need to try to, you know, produce less waste. I don't think that's something that we're going to solve here, but I think this is a great first step, and I'm fully in support. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Crowe.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I too will be a sponsor. And one of the things that I think we can kind of look at is the private pickups as well. There are a couple of larger houses that have sort of private pickup, but they don't even use a dumpster. So there's one across the street from the YWCA that actually Karen Buck with the Mayor's Summer Youth was out there, and they were tagging to give people information. And so we had a conversation out there, and there is a number of them near my house and in Ward 4 that have the private pickups, and all the trash is out on the sidewalk of the day of, but not in any they're in regular bags, and there's no dumpsters whatsoever, never mind. So again, you know, with the rodent issue, we really need to kind of curtail that, and I think we need to be looking at the private pickups too.
Good point, Counselor Crowe. Next, we have Counselor Manlanahan. Oh, hold on a second. Counselor Manlanahan.
Oh, thank you, Mr. President. I too would like to be added as a sponsor. I was really happy to see this on the docket. It's a huge pet peeve of mine. It definitely also is a big complaint that I get from certain parts of Ward 3. And also just back commuting now. I see them, around the downtown. It's driving me up the wall because it's messy and it's careless. I know it doesn't comply with what we've asked the property owners to do. And, there's better uses of our curbside space. It's certainly an accessibility issue, but in a downtown area when you've got cars triple parking to do pickup for food, and to see a dumpster sitting out for 2 or 3 days in a parking space is insulting. So bravo for getting this docketed. I fully support it, and I hope that we can get some compliance happening here.
Thank you. Counselor Karen Cohen-Hayes.
I just don't want to repeat everything. You can add me as a sponsor. I'm in full support. Thank you.
Hey, Counselor O'Malley?
Sorry for the second time. Councilor Crowe, you jogged my memory. That is actually against city ordinances which require all trash and recycling to be put into covered barrels, covered containers. So I know that we have given the residents a kind of a grace period when it comes to our current system, but I know that there's a lot of consternation out there now because I think that people should know the rules by now. You can dispose of as much trash as you want in a blue bag as long as it's in a covered barrel, any covered barrel. Or alternatively, you can use the city's provided free barrels, which are a little bit smaller, but we got for free, and everyone got for free. And you don't have to use blue bags if you use the city's sticker and put it on that official barrel. But I do think it's about time that we start enforcing the trash program. The whole point of it was to ideally make it easier for our community, but also address the rodent population, which every councilor in the city now knows is a huge issue. So I would support the city moving forward with that. I think maybe as a resolution as a council, so it's not just the mayor and the city moving forward with that, but I think showing that we are kind of united on this front. I think this is a great first step when it comes to the downtown, these larger ones, but also with the residential trash. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Simonelli.
Thank you, Mr. President. You don't have to add me on it, but I support it. And, as like Councilor O'Malley has stated, I've had many conversations with my constituents. We met up in the mayor's office with the rodent problem, and I know that's, it has many phases to it, but the trash one is definitely a big concern. So whatever we can do to tighten up the trash and garbage situation in the city would be very helpful. So I'm full support of this paper. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. I believe Councilor Murphy also wanted to be added. She clicked her button, so Councilor, I think everybody's going to be added. We'll add the entire council to this. I certainly don't want to take away anybody's speaking opportunity, but if that's the reason, and now the mayor has a letter in support as well, if you want to read the letter to the record, and then we'll be referring this to ordinance.
Dear members of the City Council, I write to ask for your consideration amending the standards and regulations for commercial waste found in Section 9.20.040 of the City of Malden ordinances and adding a new section to 11.08, which focuses on streets and sidewalks. The first proposal is to address what has become an ongoing issue with several large property owners in the downtown area. These properties are putting out large dumpsters onto the public way and leaving them for long periods of time, both full and empty. These have blocked sidewalk access, taken up valuable parking, and have otherwise provided an unpleasant experience for those in the downtown area. We have other large residential dwellings who follow a best practice of having their hauler remove and return the dumpsters to the before and after pickup. The second proposal is specific to the proliferation of streets and sidewalk markings citywide. Of course, state law requires the marking of utilities prior to the commencement of any work. This is usually done by DigSafe. The proposed ordinance would require the party who requests the markings to remove them through pressure washing on some other means once the work is complete. It would also require DigSafe to notify the Department of Public Works of all markings done in Malden to facilitate enforcement. Again, I would ask that you consider these proposed amendments, and in the meantime, please let me know if you need any additional information. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, Gary Christensen, Mayor of Malden.
So the mayor wrote on support on both of these changes, but let's just do one at a time. You want to just read the first paper refer? Because the other one's the next paper.
Yeah. So it's, this is paper 367-22.
Correct, yep.
Okay, paper
Oh, no, wait, 367, yeah, 360, yep.
367-22, order be it hereby ordained that section 9.20.040 standards and regulations for commercial waste of the municipal community code be amended by adding new section 9.20.040C1E to include no dumpster shall be stored on the public way, including for purposes of pickup and the service provider.
So the sponsors of the entire city council on Councilor Crow's motion to refer the paper to rules and ordinance. All those in favor? All those opposed? Ayes have it, 10-0. Next order of business.
Paper 368-22, order be it ordained that section 11.0, streets and sidewalks on the MCC be amended by adding section 11.08.200 to address markings on the public way. Councilor Spinner.
Yep, so this one, the mayor spoke about it. This was another pet peeve of mine during the summer, driving around and walking my dog. After they do all this site work for gas, utility, we've done a lot of the city, they don't clean up, they don't get rid of the markings. So it looks like graffiti on the street. And I did a little research. Other communities actually have ordinances that force them to remove the markings, because it's amazing that you think the utilities would be nice enough to do so, but they don't, unless you point them to an ordinance. So I was talking to the mayor about it, and the mayor thought it was a good idea as well. So that all this is requiring them, after they do dig safe, that they are required to power wash those markings off the streets, sidewalks, etc. Any discussion on the paper? Hold on, Councilor Winslow first.
Yeah, I'd like to maybe also, if it's rules and orders, to also have Public Works Committee involved, because I just reading the language, I'd like to see what other communities are saying, because the language I read is, I don't know if it really understands what the process is of dig safe, so I just think we need some discussion in the committee, so yeah. Yeah, joint, yeah, I think there, just to me, is to make sure the language is clear. I don't think it's clear enough to me right now. Dig safe is really more a notification service. It's not, they don't go out and do the markings, they notify the utilities, and then they go out and do the markings. So I guess understanding who's responsible for removing them, that's the question.
That's a good point.
So I think it needs some clarification. That's all. Thanks, great.
Yeah, because now that you bring up that point, Council, when I had a fence put in a couple of years ago, the fence company called Dig Safe to make sure there was no gas line when they put the fence in. So it wasn't even a utility company. Dig Safe, well, they hired a third party to mark out the gas line so that when you put a fence in, you make sure you don't have a gas line. So that's the valid point.
I think we just need some clarity on who it applies to.
Nope, fair enough. So I'll take that. Council Crowe, discussion of the motion. So Council Crowe.
So the two things, actually, I'm in full support of this.
Yep.
And be a co-sponsor. I do have a few streets, the corner of Madison, Easton Ave, and Main Street. It looks like a paint by numbers, and it's been like that for quite a while, but no work has actually been done after. It was like kind of all marked out, and even, we've had these conversations with Bobby Knox a couple of times, and he doesn't know until someone comes and they actually want to do the work. So I do think, I agree with Councilor Winslow that we need some clarification on who the responsible party would be, but so I make a motion to refer to ordinance and public works.
Okay, so if council, any discussion? Okay, so on Councilor Winslow's motion to send to joint ordinance and public works, seconded by Councilor Crowe, all those in favor? All those opposed? Ayes have it, 10-0, referred to both. Next order of business.
Paper 369-22, order that $1 million is appropriated to pay cost of reconstruction in making extraordinary repairs to the Central Business District Garage, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, and to meet the appropriation, the treasurer, with approval of the mayor, is authorized to borrow said amount under General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 7-1, or any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes on the city therefore.
Councilor Murphy for the paper.
Thank you, Council President. This paper will be referred to Finance, but it is something that we will be taking up immediately. It really is a critical situation at the moment with the Central Business Garage to the point that if we don't do something soon, we will be closing the garage down. So it's a motion to refer to finance. Well, I'm sure I have a lot of discussion in the committee meeting about it, and hopefully get it back out to the floor relatively quickly.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, to refer to finance, seconded by Councilor Condon. On Councilor Murphy's motion to refer to finance, seconded by Councilor Condon. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Item, next order, all those opposed, no. Item is referred to finance. Next order of business.
Paper 370-2022, order that the sum of $28,164.75 be and hereby is appropriated from the TNC surcharge municipal distribution account to cover the following expenses: road milling and paving, utility structure adjustments, pedestrian signal upgrades, wheelchair ramp upgrades, and new crosswalk line striping with thermoplastic at the intersection of Summer Street and Clifton Street.
On Councilor Murphy with the paper?
Yes, once again, this is going to be referred to finance for discussion, but for those of you who are new to the council and for those of you in the audience, when we refer to the TNC surcharge municipal distribution account, this is actually lift money. So for every ride where someone ride shares, the cities actually get about 10 cents per ride, and it does add up to a decent chunk of change. In past years, it's been over $100,000 per year. Because of COVID, it's down, but between the last 2 years, if you combine them, we're just up a little bit over $100,000. So what we decided as a council, when this first came to our attention that we had access to this money, was that as opposed to trying to split it up between wards, that we as a council made a decision that we would use this money to make repairs to an intersection. And so far, I know Ward 4 and 5 have been beneficiaries of having the intersection at Forest and Main done, which was a really difficult intersection to navigate with all the folks going to the train session. I believe Ward 2 down on Highland Ave has had some work done down there. Ward 4 on the other side of the train station, we used the money, I think, a couple of years ago to do over by Summer in, it's the other big intersection.
Was it a winter?
At the end of winter and, yeah. So this is another.
Winter in Washington.
Winter in Washington, so I'm not familiar with the Ward 4 streets that well. But this is another area that is in need of concern. It's a very old intersection, and we're looking to, utilize the money for this. But once again, we'll be having robust discussion in Finance Committee, hoping to turn this around relatively quickly and get it back out so we can get the work started on this intersection and have safer passage for our folks.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. You have a couple lights on. Councilor Linehan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just will be really brief. I'm really thankful to see this. This is hands down one of our most complained about least safe intersections, and it's a really critical route to get to and from the BB school. Just with all the one-ways around the school, you'd be surprised how many people end up navigating through this intersection to get over to the school area. So I know we've got a lot of residents who are going to be really, really happy to see this, and this is exactly what our TNC money is designed to go toward. So look forward to talking about it more in committee.
Thank you, Councilor Linehan. Councilor O'Malley.
Also in favor, and I appreciate that this is being looked at. It's a great opportunity for us, and looking forward to it being distributed across the community as we do these targeted approaches.
Thank you. Councilor Winslow.
Yeah, no, I think it's been very great improvements that have made. I mean, I say we have 70 traffic signals in the community, and many of them are antiquated, as we're finding throughout. So I definitely supportive of dedicating this money to that. And there's certainly ones in Ward 6, and we know on Center Street that can use this money going forward. So, so definitely supportive of the, continuing to focus this on intersections. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Winslow. No other lights. So on Councilor Murphy's motion to refer to finance, seconded by Councilor Linehan. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Item is referred to finance. Next order of business.
Paper 371-22, order that the appropriation enumerated below, being the amount of $31,470, be appropriated from the community preservation. $31,470 be appropriated from the Community Preservation Act Fund to the following project: Wallace Park restoration, $31,470 from Historic Preservation Reserve, and I have a letter from the mayor.
Because it was $31, I would have paid it for it.
Yeah, I should read the numbers and not the words.
Yeah. So we do have, I certainly, I think everybody in this council knows what that project is. It's Wallace Park, which is AKA BB Hill. It's a restoration. That was a project that started really in the beginning of the Community Preservation Act. It came twice before it was approved. Michelle Romero, who sits on that, or at least helped with that project initially, she's here. I don't want to put words in her mouth. She can certainly explain. So there is a letter of support she sent there. But I would invite, if there's no opposition from the committee, to have Michelle come up and talk to the council about an update on the project and certainly the needs of the 31,000. Yes. Oh, you want to speak, Council Murphy?
Yes,
Council
please.
Murphy. Well, I was going to let her speak and then go.
But I just wanted to let the council know that this is being referred to finance.
Yes,
Because
I'm
at
sorry.
one point, you know, we did do it on the floor.
Yep.
But where we have time, this is not it's not critical that this be, we suspend docket rules and try to do this evening. So I don't want anyone to think that's the route we're taking tonight.
Fair enough.
This will be
Yes.
referred to finance for discussion.
Yep, and I was, it's a good project. I think the public gets to hear it on TV night, so I want her to
Right,
come up and
that's
certainly give. So Michelle, if you can come up and give your name and address for record and update on the park, the wall.
Thank you, Michelle Romero, City Planner. I'm here as clerk of the Historical Commission this evening. Thank you for taking this up. The project is complete, so the wall has been restored. It has been fully renovated, restored. Previous repairs have been addressed. It's been, if anyone's been out to see it, they did an excellent job. So this is a request for supplemental funding. The $200,000 of funding was already approved for the project. That came from the CPA funding source as well. The final construction cost came in higher than the amount of the original grant and the supplemental funding due to issues that were not visible during the bidding process and that were discovered after the work had started. So we filed an emergency off-cycle application for additional CPA funds to cover. The project is complete. I won't get into any more of the details unless you want me to. I will come to the committee to speak further in further detail if you need me to. I could also invite our consultant, David Hancock, if you want more details on the work that was done for the project. And thank you for your consideration of this and your ongoing support of this project and the Historical Commission.
Questions, Michelle? Any questions for Michelle Romero on the project? Okay, thank you for coming down and taking the time. So I will take that
Motion to
as a
refer to
motion by
finance.
Councilor Murphy to refer to finance. Oh, there's a paper too? No, this is the mayor? The mayor wants to support it, so we'll read the mayor's.
Dear members of the City Council, I'd like to ask for the City Council support to fund the attached request for supplemental funds to preserve and restore the wall at Wallace Memorial Park presented to me by the Community Preservation Committee. In reaching out their recommendations, the CPC found that the project meets eligibility requirements and aligns with the priorities stated in Malden's Community Preservation Plan. The supplementary funding application was the subject of a public hearing of the CPC held on July 20th, 2022. The request for $31,470 is to supplement the $200,000 of funding that was already approved for the project. The final construction costs came in higher than the amount of the original grant and supplemental funding due to issues that were not visible during the bidding process and discovered only after work had already started. An emergency off-cycle application was filed and the CPC's recommendation approval is attached. Again, the additional funding is necessary to move this important project forward. I fully support the request and I believe that it will help preserve one of Malden's historical assets. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, Gary Christensen, Mayor of Malden.
Okay, now with that being said, on Council Murphy's motion to refer to finance, seconded by Council Condon, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Item is passed, 10-0, referred to finance. Thank you, Michelle. Next order of business.
Paper 372-22, order that City Council empowers the city's legal department to investigate and answer the alleged open meeting law complaint filed by Lisette Alvarado from the Friends of Roosevelt Park on August 12, 2022, against the Malden City Council and Ward 6 Councilor Stephen Winslow.
So I am a sponsor because I talked to the clerk, from the city solicitor. So it was asked to refer it on here so we can give a pretty, unfortunately, we're getting pretty good at this process. But we have to give permission to the city solicitor to investigate. He is here, so I'll invite him up if there's any questions. Council Winslow, I'll give you the mic too, but I just wanted to, so no questions. I'm going to go to Councilor Winslow first.
No, I did, knowing this sort of specifically related to some activity I have been involved in, I did already reach out to Attorney McNaught, so I just wanted to say that we had followed up. I mean, this was all happening when we were pretty much on recess, so I just want to say that I did, respond and sit down, within the time frame of the open meeting law. So, but since we were at a meeting, we couldn't proceed and do this. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor O'Malley, you want to yield to the solicitor, or you want to speak first? Okay, you can speak first.
So I agree. I think that, there are valid, open meeting law complaints, and then I think that there are ones that are a little bit more, less valid. And to Councilor Winslow's defense, he, in my opinion, has the right to organize residents to petition us to do whatever. And so I support Councilor Winslow in your right to organize community members to work with us. That is kind of our job. So I will defer to whatever Councilor Winslow wants to do on this because it has to do with him specifically. But I just want to let you know that, we might not always agree on particular policy issues, but you have my support as a friend and a counselor. And I do think that, as a community, we do kind of need to think about when and where we put our effort and whether or not it is detrimental to our causes on both sides of this issue. So fully in support with whatever Councilor Winslow would like to do.
Okay, thank you, Councilor O'Malley. There's a bunch of lights. I'm going to go to Councilor McDonald. He was waiting patiently that I'll yield to John because it might, Councilor McNaught before, because it might answer some questions. So Councilor McDonald.
I'm happy to yield to Attorney McNaught to speak first. I had a more general question about this process.
Councilor McNaught, you have the floor.
This is, councilors, this is an open meeting law complaint that specifically points to City Councilor Winslow. We have had the opportunity to meet, investigate this matter, look at documents, etc. So I will be contacting each and every one of you to ask you questions about whether or not outside of this chamber you have in any way consulted, deliberated with regard to this particular matter. As I see the investigation so far, that has not been the case, but I will contact you just to ask you those questions. So I ask your permission to do this investigation, to provide you with a copy of the report that I must file with the Attorney General's office.
You yielded, so you get the floor now, Councilor.
Okay, great. So I'm just aware that we are getting more and more, or I don't know, maybe we were getting a lot of them last year and I just wasn't here for it, but we get a large number of open meeting violation complaints. We need to keep doing better about those things. I'm just wondering if there's a way to streamline the legal review process of this so you don't have to wait for the thing on the docket to do the thing that we know we're going to need you to do anyway. And I don't know how much of that is directed by the state, and you don't have to answer that right now, but I just wanted to invite the city's attorney office, if we could like blanket authorize automatically certain things and then our review is built in at the right point in the process. If there's anything to just speed that up and help you do your job better, I'd welcome the chance to entertain that.
Well, Councilor McDonald, you and I have had a conversation in the committee meeting with regard to the same issue. Luckily and beneficially, we have had the grace of the Attorney General's office in providing us with additional time because committees don't meet every night. City Council doesn't meet every night. And any other committee against whom there may be a complaint or any individual, you have to go through the process. So I don't think you can really streamline it so that there's, pocket permission that I have all the time from you. I think it's best that I come forward and explain to you that we have to go through a certain process, that I might have to contact each and every one of you. Now, of course, if it's not against the City Council, I'd have to contact whatever committee, commission, who's involved. And so in that case, I'd still have to create a response and get their authority to do the same thing I'm asking you for today.
Very well. I would just be happy to, you know, have a standing policy or something in our council rules that says you can go ahead and start talking to people, and then we'll hear the results of that and weigh in if we need to. Just trying to streamline the process. Thank you.
Aye, thank you.
Okay, I see no other lights, so I believe we need a motion to allow Attorney McNaught to investigate the, okay? Okay, any questions? Okay, on Council Simonelli's motion to allow a vote to approve that Attorney McNaught investigate the open meeting law violation on August 12th, 2022 against the Malden City Council and Ward 6 Council Steve Winslow, seconded by Council Murphy. All those in favor? All those against? Item passes. John?
Thank you very much.
All right. Next order of business.
Paper 373-22, order that the city charter and applicable city ordinances be amended to make the city solicitor an elected position, A, by striking paragraph 1 of section 14 of the Malden City Charter, and B, adding a new section 37 titled City Solicitor, detailing the manner of election in a 6-year term of the city solicitor.
Councilor O'Malley for the paper.
Thank you. So despite what was said earlier, there are no ulterior motives to this. This is related to the fact that, unless I am misunderstood, in the solicitor's office, no solicitor is a resident of Malden. I think that is the only department that, is that not true? That was my understanding. It's great to hear that there may be a solicitor that is in the city of Malden. I do think it's important to have local control to some degree over different departments. I think that local representation is crucial, particularly in your legal department, because they are going to court, and the judgments that are put against the city impact our public tax dollars. Settlements that are made impact our public tax dollars. Having skin in the game, having local control is important. It is a political entity, but right now it is one step removed from the people. It is accountable to the city council, and historically, as I've seen it, in my opinion, it is not always accountable to the entire council. It is a department that I do believe needs to be, if it's going to continue to report to the city council, more impartial and less political. Even though it is a difficult thing to ask, that is really an important thing in order for all of us in the community to have faith in the department. This is an idea that I had. I'm not saying that it has to go this route. I'm just looking to have a conversation. Don't necessarily need to have it on the floor here, but I would move to refer this to the ordinance committee, where Councilor Crowe and the committee could look into it more in depth. And if it doesn't work out, so be it, but at least we've done our due diligence. Otherwise, if that's not the case, we do have a potential vacancy in the solicitor's office, and posting for a permanent city solicitor is probably something that we should be doing sooner rather than later. So thank you for entertaining the motion to refer to ordinance.
Thank you, Council. Council Condon.
I'm not in favor of moving this to ordinance. I'm not in favor of this at all. The only thing political about this is us. I don't consider city solicitors political, all right? They rule for us, they rule against us. And you take them with their knowledge of municipal law. I mean, I've gone through so many solicitors over the years that I've been here, and none of them are political. They have to issue according to law, and I think this department does a damn good job. Obviously, you don't get every solicitor you vote for or you don't want. The last city clerk, I voted against it, but they put them in anyways. We have appointments that you get to vote for and you get to vote against. I wouldn't waste my time and anybody else's time to put this into a committee, to put it out for a vote. Because somebody doesn't live in the city of Malden doesn't mean that can't be an excellent city solicitor. So I got my full faith in this department. Thank you.
Council Winslow.
Yeah, I don't quite understand how electing the city solicitor will really get to some of the concerns of Councilor O'Malley. In some ways, it'll make this position more distant from the council. I mean, I do, having, worked as an attorney and been the client, I mean, an attorney's job is to be a zealous advocate for their clients. So, but the client decides, and hopefully within the law. So I think that's understanding. I mean, we're a complicated client to serve. We're 11 people. We have the mayor. I mean, other communities have the mayor be responsible for hiring and firing the city solicitor, something we don't do. So I think I'm not supportive because I just don't think this is the way to go. I'd be open to having some discussion of trying to, as a council, if this, the charter changes are stalled, we're not making any changes there, but maybe to better understand and have some transparency of how legal issues are raised and handled. That may be something that would be beneficial to us all and maybe dampen down some of this controversy of, who's sort of the, managing client here and what the responsibility of we are to each other. Because it's hard, isn't it, if you're 11-headed client or more is something hard to understand and be a zealous advocate for. So I think that's the dilemma of, how do we work with the solicitor's office? That's really what the question is here, and that's what we should be trying to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Winslow. Council Murphy.
Yes, I'm not in favor of moving this to ordinance this evening. We have a number of positions that report to us, whether it's the city solicitor, the controller, the assessor, the city clerk. Our job as a council is to find the best person suited for that job to represent this city, whether it's taking care of our finances, whether it's taking care of our legal aspects of our job. Our job is to make sure that we have the best, most qualified, and the person who's going to do the job. So putting this out to an election, I don't think is the appropriate way to go. I think that the city solicitor's office has done a great job for us. I know, Mr. McNaught, thank you for taking on this special appointment for these 90 days to make sure that we continue along those lines. You bring an experience to the table that's hard to find, in anyone. So I thank you for what you're doing for us today as we speak. So I am not in favor of moving this to ordinance and clogging up ordinance for any further discussion. So I'll be voting no on this.
Thank you, Council Murphy. Council Minnelli for the paper.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't know if this is the direction we want to go in by putting the city solicitor's position out for an elected officials process. I just think I just don't think it gives that person the flexibility. I think that, it's hard enough to be answering to 11 of us up here. It's much harder to be listening and have to appease, thousands of people that you're running for office for. So I think it puts you in a hard position when you do that. And I think that the city solicitor's job, my experience since I've been in office the last time and this time has been great. They give us, good advice on keeping the city, in their opinion, out of hot water and make sure that, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing according to the charter of the city and the rules and the ordinances and state laws. So I think it works out good the way the system is now. So I would just like to just keep that system going. And I'm not really in support of putting it out there for an election, that's for sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Linehan.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I don't want to be redundant to what others have said. I'm not sure that making this an elected position would achieve the stated goals of the sponsor. I also just try to keep in mind, you know, it's really hard to recruit municipal staff in general nowadays, but particularly a role like this is a very challenging position to fill. And I think, you know, we need to be thinking about that when we think about the long-term sort of health and recruitment efforts of the city. It's you know, very high stakes job. There's night meetings like we're all at tonight. And I'm sorry, are you not?
I'm just, can the other counselors not speak? Can we turn our mics off?
I thought you were having,
No,
thought there was
I'm
something
sorry.
wrong with mine.
No, it's not you.
That's okay. So, yeah, sorry to be rambling a little bit, but I think, you know, if we feel like there's issues of impartiality or accountability or whatever the concerns behind proposing something like this might be, I might suggest again something that I've brought up before, which is maybe we explore the option of bringing on an ombudsman or an ombudsperson. You know, if people in elected position or in City Hall don't feel that they're having good interactions with folks in tough positions like the solicitor or HR or even with one of us, that could be, you know, potentially an impartial person that they could bring concerns to that might help mitigate and wade through some of those issues. So just food for thought. I don't think this is the right direction for us to solve the issues underlying this proposal tonight, but I think that we have other things that we could think about as we try to move forward and think about this position for the future.
Thank you, Council Linehan. Council McDonald.
Yeah, so I too don't really support moving in the direction of an elected city attorney for all the reasons explained. And so I don't think it would be helpful, given that enough of the folks have stated that at this table, to refer it. But what I want to say is that I hear that there are some concerns that are behind this that I do think we should find a place to have a discussion about. And understand this was, you know, in part intended to be a vehicle for that. So I would like to support finding an appropriate venue in one of our committees that is, you know, doesn't have to be in these long meetings, to be able to allow Councilor O'Malley to surface the specific concerns that he has. This is a good time as we're heading towards transition to be able to talk about, are there specific types of policies or practices that we should be looking at as a council and how we ask the attorney to represent us. So I don't know what's included in that. I'm happy to support an open conversation. I don't think this is the right place to start it. So if we have another place to do that, I'd be happy to, sponsor that or move for that. Maybe that committee of the whole that I still can't figure out what we have for.
Councilor Crowe.
I'm not going to be redundant. I don't think this is the direction we want to go. And I'm really open to having just about any conversation, but I don't think it should be going to ordinance because, again, as Council McDonald just said, the voices of here, it's not really the right conversation to be had. Other, concerns might be the right conversations, but I don't think this one is.
Councilor O'Malley for the second time.
So I appreciate everyone being open to what I was bringing to the table and having this first level discussion. Look forward to having it in wherever it would fit best. In order to save us all time, I'd be willing to withdraw that, knowing that we will have this conversation in an earnest and honest way in the future. So if the council's willing, I'd like to withdraw.
Okay. Councilor Winslow has his mic. Okay. Councilor Winslow, you have a point of order, a question?
My suggestion might be to have maybe personal and appointments, have a discussion, since we will be going through that process. It might be good to have a little bit of understanding as we're going into that process, how that, it might be good to have that discussion. But that's, I'll let Councilor O'Malley put something together.
So he has a motion to withdraw.
Yeah, great.
Do I have a second for council to withdraw? On Councilor Simonelli, so on Councilor O'Malley's motion, withdraw the paper, seconded by Councilor Simonelli. All those in favor? All those opposed? 1 no. I will just speak on it. I am not going to echo everybody else. I actually did a little research on it. There's not one city in town in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that I could find. I looked at a lot of them that have an elected city solicitor or a town administrator. But going through part of that process is, I didn't hear anybody up here say, I've heard you report to us, we don't agree with that. I think everybody who's been a councilor here for a number of years, and certainly some of the new ones, we always don't agree with the city solicitor, certainly when there's lawsuits. A lot of times we don't want to settle, but their interest is not aligned with us. Their interest is aligned with the people. So sometimes we win with them, sometimes we disagree. I think Councilor Condon has said it. There's times we go in there and we agree with them, there's times we don't agree. To me, it's like taking out the whole process and throwing it out with the bathwater. And the other thing I would say, what I came across in my research is Massachusetts is one of the, I don't want to say few, but there's a reason why they still appoint judges. Because they feel that when you elect a judge, it changes the whole dichotomy of that judge's position. And you certainly see that down in Texas and some of those other states where you read these stories where they're, the decades there, and they become politicians more than they become judges. So I think we're in a good spot here. I'm glad there was a spirited debate, but I'm also glad it was withdrawn. So I look forward to posting the position. We do only have 90 days. I was going to instruct the HR director to post it before this meeting. When I saw the docket, I did not want to make it seem deliberate. I waited to have a first council meeting. We do have 90 days. It is a requirement that we post it. It's an ordinance that I pass that all jobs have to be posted. So I will instruct the HR director, I sent him an email today, to post that position as soon as possible so we can refer everything to personnel, and start that process. Thank you. Next order of business.
Paper 374-22, order that City of Malden place a ballot question on the 2000.
Oh, go ahead, Council McDonald. Yep, sorry.
Can we change the order to bring up?
Oh, that's right, I'm sorry, Council. I said it to the clerk, too. I said it to the clerk, my fault. Yep.
That was Councilor Crow's catch.
Councilor
She's
Crow,
just
I'm
not
sorry. I apologize. I mentioned to the clerk, too, so our bad. We're going to jump ahead based on Councilor Crow's motion, or recommendation, rather, to skip to, is it paper 378-22, Council? 370, I'm sorry, look at the next one down. We're going to skip to 377-22. 378, right? Yeah, so 378, right? We got to take both. So let's do 377-22 and then go to 377-22, okay? All the councils have that? Okay, clerk, read the paper, please.
Paper 377-22, resolved that the Malden City Council invite members of the Malden youth community to speak in front of the council about the importance of Hispanic Heritage Month and to invite the council to upcoming events.
So, Councilor Karen Colon-Hayes, can we have him read the second paper to the clerk, so that way we can do them both at once, because they're kind of connected? Fair? Yeah, absolutely. And we can vote separate if you want.
Huh? Oh, my.
Yep, do you want, we'll put it in the record, we can. No, do you, would, yeah, read it, and we can discuss them and vote, we can vote together or separate, however the sponsor.
Okay, so we have another one similar to 377 or related to. Paper 378-22, resolved that the Malden City Council recognize and celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month. Whereas Hispanic Heritage Month began as a commemorative week in 1968 to recognize the contributions of the Hispanics, Latino, and Latinx community during the Civil Rights Movement, and whereas in 1988 it was expanded to a month. Hispanic Heritage Month begins on September 15th, a historically significant day that marks the anniversary of independence of 5 Latin American countries, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua, and soon after Mexico on September 16th, Chile on September 18th, and Belize on September 21st, and whereas Hispanics is America's progress, Latinos are the growth and the economic power of the U.S., and with more than 62 million people and with $1.9 trillion in purchasing power, and whereas each year Americans observe National Hispanic Heritage Month by celebrating the histories, cultures, and contributions of American citizens whose ancestors came from Mexico, Spain, the Caribbean, and Central and South America, and whereas Latinos are a large group of hardworking, passionate, and full of values individuals who have contributed and continue to contribute to American society and our in our city of Malden culture, economy, and overall progress. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council hereby recognize in Malden and celebrate September 15th through October 15th as Hispanic Heritage Month.
Very good, Council. You always got to read those long resolves, so very good. Councilor McDonald still has the longest one. So they're both papers are sponsored by Councilor Colon-Hayes, and I figured because they're related, we can do them together. So now, Councilor Colon-Hayes, you have the floor. Let me just turn your mic on here. I screwed up my screen. So there you go, Councilor.
Great. Thank you so much, and thank you for taking this out of order. We do have members of the North Shore Hispanic Association. We have Marguerite, Christina, Gladys, and Elena in the audience, been waiting for this, so I appreciate that. So what I'm asking now, it's part of the new policy, I guess I'm going to say, that had been developed earlier, that we have to put on the docket a resolve to ask for people to come and speak, that they can come before us. So that's what this is, and I'm hoping that next week, Hispanic Heritage Month is like I said, a month long. We do have lots of events going on throughout the month that we would like to also present then, and I'll send an email. There's like one a week. But what this is, I want to have Malden youth who are watching now, hopefully, they didn't have to go to bed or do their homework, but I'd like to have them come in and they're going to read it like line by line, that's all it is, like take it apart and have one person read it, and they're gonna do it in Spanish and English. So I'd love to hopefully have everybody support this, and that's it.
So Councilor Hayes, two things. So one is, well, for the council, and then I'll get back to my earlier statement. So one is a resolve that usually we vote as a council anyways to support. And the second one is just the system now to make sure that we don't have too many people speaking in one meeting, right? Next week, I just want to remind you, is not a TV night.
That's right.
It is. Oh, is it next week? Okay, so it is. Okay, good. So it is. So we're all set. You positive? Yep. I was going to recommend that you wait 2 weeks, but if we have TV, I didn't want to do it without. So we're going to have TV next week, right? You positive?
Yeah, because we came back, we missed the
Okay.
election, so it's council, then committee, council.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm. So next
Next, the 20th.
two.
Because of the election, would normally been a council night, committee, council. So it's council, then committee.
Yeah, so for the audience, we have council meetings followed by committee meetings, followed by council meetings every other week. Committee meetings are not usually taped, so that means it's not live on TV. So when we have guests in, usually we want to make sure they get the biggest bang for their buck by having the television audience. So that's why we just debated this, and given that we had an election, we should have started the 6th. Was it the 6th? The 6th. We got bumped 1 week because we do not meet on elections. So we got a little cobwebs in our systems here, so we're just cleaning that up. So we are having 2 weeks. So my previous statement, I just want to make sure you had the TV. So there are two motions before us. One is resolve, and then one is to have them come before us next week. Council, do you want to do them all at once, or do you want to do them separate? It's up to you. I think
No,
it's
all
gonna,
at once. We're
okay.
fine.
So Council Winslow for the discussion.
Yeah, I thank Councilor Colon Hayes for advancing these resolutions, and I'm in full support and would like to be added as a sponsor. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Linehan?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would say the same as Councilor Winslow, full support, would love to be added as a sponsor. I know we've spoken about this, all of us, before. I don't love this new system. I think this is really onerous. I like being able to invite people and docket them with the old system. So I know that's not what we're talking about right now, but this feels like a lot of extra work, and our poor guests have been sitting here, and we have 2 resolves for really 1 item. So I'm hoping we can sort this out in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, we can certainly, I think I have some ideas. So what we're talking about is just making sure that we don't have too many guests. It was certainly something that came up in the past. Even speaking to council, I don't want to put Council McDonald on the spot. We just don't want to have 5 guests, because what usually happens is it gets drawn out and we get people waiting. I do have my rules with the ordinance committee that I have some ideas to work it through, to hopefully get that done ASAP, but it is a little bit tedious, an extra step. Council McDonald.
I also support both of these and would like to ask to be added as a sponsor. Just to Councilor Linehan's point, I wonder if we could just have a system whereby each of us, as councilors, can docket 1 group, and then we can use our 1 for whatever we want in a certain period of time, and then it's up to us, then we just don't have to do with the delay of the voting.
Or no more than 2 on 1 meeting. That's something like that.
Yeah, no more than 2 in 1 meeting. First come, first served.
Yeah,
Done.
exactly.
While we're working on the rules, just like some agreement that
That's
needs to
fair.
be
That's
to
fair.
that.
Yep.
I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
All right, before any other lights come on, does anybody else want to support these resolves? Because we had 2.
Yes.
Okay, Council So it looks like you put the entire council on for both resolve and to invite the group to come in next week and speak. So on Councilor Karen Colon Hayes' motion to pass paper 377-22 and 378. Oh, I'm sorry, Counselor.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for Counselor Linehan for bringing that up. I did want to speak on it. Of course, I wanted to wait to make sure it passed. I was worried. But there are youth here that wanted to come tonight. I'll say that they were nervous that they it might be voted that they couldn't speak, because that has happened before with the city council and their vote. So I'm really glad if they're watching now and I hope that we can work around this. I think it's onerous also, and it's almost censorship in my mind. So I hope that we can definitely work something out where we don't have to go through this process. Thank you.
Yep, and clerk, can we just have that group speak first next week, especially if they're kids? We don't want to keep them out on a school night. Maybe they want to speak last to stay out of school, but let's not give them a reason. Okay, on Councilor Karen Cologne Hayes' motion to pass paper 377-22 and 378-22, seconded by Councilor Karen McDonald. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Items carried, 10-0. Both passed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry for keeping you late. Next order of business.
Okay, so we're back.
Yes.
Because everyone's leaving. This is why we wait, so people stay.
We got to go back to...
374-22.
Yes.
Order, the City of Malden place a ballot question on the 2023 municipal ballot asking, should the City of Malden install an artificial turf field at Roosevelt Park by the Salem School? A yes vote would support the artificial turf, a no vote would reject the artificial turf and agree to a grass field.
Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you. I think that we all know that, grass or artificial turf at Salemwood and the Roosevelt Park has caused a lot of debate in our community. I know the city just had a meeting related to the HUD funding. The Roosevelt Park group is going to be having their public participation meeting, which they were able to create and cause to happen through a petition that was filed with the city clerk. That's coming up this coming Monday evening, September 19th at 7 p.m. Highly recommend the councilors as well as the public to go to that meeting. So I think that the debate on whether it's grass or turf is an important discussion that, isn't necessarily our decision to make. I think there are also two issues going on. There's what type of surface are you going to use? But I think, to be honest with you, for me, almost more importantly, but very importantly also, how much we're going to decontaminate the site. Historically, I said this the other night, and I'll say it here again. Historically, Roosevelt Park was a fire pond. That's where the fire department would collect water to fight fires. And occasionally, and maybe regularly, the city of Malden would take the charred buildings that were burnt down and other material and would throw it in that pond. Well, doing that for a couple of years has resulted in there being a lot of contamination in that soil. Lead and other heavy metals. I was a student at Salemwood School. You've heard this in the past. There has been a history of lead exposure at that park. It was somewhat remediated but when the Salemwood School was built back in 1999, but it was not done to a level that was safe. We are about to do that same exact process again, and I wouldn't want a council 20 years from now looking back at us saying, why didn't they clean it up to the full depth that needs to be done in order for it to be safe, whether or not it's artificial turf or grass. So I do think that the fact that there is this detrimental environmental impact related to the heat island in this particular neighborhood does warrant this being placed on the ballot. I have heard from some of my colleagues that they think the 2023 election is too far away, so I would be willing to accept a friendly amendment to have a special election sooner. I think that is a rather heavy lift, but I think we could do it if we're all willing to do that. I would be comfortable with a friendly amendment, but for now, I hope I can count on your support to put this to the ballot. Let's let the people decide, is this going to be a turf field or a grass field? And with that, I would move that we adopt the order or pass the order.
Okay, so I got a second. Any discussion? Councilor Karen Cohen Hayes.
Yes, I would also like to see this be put to a ballot. I think that it is important enough, especially with environmental justice piece. We have heard from so many residents, both for and against, so I'm totally up to putting that out. I know that everybody's pretty much knows my stance on that. I want the toxins remediated completely, and I would love to see grass in there, so I do realize that putting it to a ballot, it might lose, but I think it's important enough that the people need to speak, and we should put it to the ballot and see what we have to, see what it said. It's important enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Council Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am not for moving this forward. I think it's just another way to stall this project. It has been stalled for 2 years. We have been trying to clean up this park for 2 years and have been hamstrung at every corner that we have tried to turn. This is a good project, a good plan. It has been reviewed by experts. We are going to remediate the issues there, encapsulate anything under 15 inches that could possibly rise to the surface. It won't be able to. This will give us, starting back in 2017, when Councilor Winslow and I were on the Open Space Planning Commission, we looked at what the city needed to support athletics, outside environmental access, et cetera. And Roosevelt Field is a field that is in desperate need of renovation. It supports a number of our children in school, but also it supports the athletic community and intramural sports, and will allow the children to have recess and be able to get outside and run around. We've incorporated everything that the school has asked us to do other than put natural grass there, which is not feasible. We talked earlier today in a previous meeting about, being able to care for our fields. This was not a public meeting. It was a public meeting, but it wasn't televised. And the need for some fields that can support soccer, lacrosse, Papuana football, those types of athletics that our children need. This field has been offline for 2 years. This is just unacceptable that we have a large field space that's not usable to the general public. We need to get a shovel in the ground, and we need to get this project moving forward. No reason to stall this project anymore. So I am not supportive of this, and I would hope that the rest of my councilors wouldn't be in support of this either.
Thank you, Council Murphy. Council Winslow.
Yeah, I know we had a meeting on Thursday night where there was an incredible team the city had put together to address any questions the public had, and we had comments on both sides of this. In terms of the contamination there, I mean, I think you've heard from the team that the plan will fully address any health concerns. And I think that the team also talked about even the concerns that have been raised about the turf itself, and they had looked thoroughly at that. And as someone who actually helped write the regulations and sat with many of the people, I don't know if you realize sitting next to me at that meeting on Thursday night was Paul Locke, who was one of the chief toxicologists at Mass DEP that I work with, and he actually helped develop a lot of these standards. As my boss at that time talked about, said you can spend a lot of money chasing chemicals. The purpose of these laws is to protect public health, and the standards that Mass DEP has developed and implements do that. And I say, in terms of, we're just talking about today, I was meeting on trying to work to get more funding for Trafton Park and other parks. Councilor Simonelli, I know we're doing a great job of looking at implement Kerstead Park, talking about Patchell Park. The more money we sink in digging up soils that we don't really need to do to protect public health means some part of Kerstead is stopped or delayed. Patchell may not happen. Something at Trafton doesn't happen. That's the type of thing. It's a trade-off. This money doesn't come from anywhere. And I think the other thing I think of, I mean, this is a, you know, we've seen so many delaying tactics. We had some you know, really meritless appeals filed. I think back in the 1990s, working on our bike trail. And I went to a very controversial meeting over in Revere where, you know, the original plan, if you don't recall, is we were going to have the bike path sort of go through Linden and then go directly to Revere Beach. Craig, guess will remember. Some of you, Paul, might remember. Yep. But the proposal, and the neighborhood over in Revere was up in arms that, you know, these bicyclists were going to ruin the quality of life. We're going to actually bring drugs and prostitutes to Revere. And they just went crazy. And ironically, you know, we have our bike trail. I get so many positive compliments. And some of it was persisting through that kind of, you know, overt fear. And I think you see it something like that, thing is, you know, vastly improved. And I do have to say, Mr. Locke, who sat with me, he and I actually drafted the policies on how to handle the toxic chemicals you can find along railroad beds. And that's what allowed our trail to go ahead. And in fact, you know, paving that area and having community gardens was part of the strategy to deal with the fact that in an urban area that's been around since the railroad started running, you find these chemicals pretty much anywhere. So that is, these are the type of strategies to handle public health in a way that makes you achieve things, because otherwise you just dig and move your pile of dirt somewhere else. So I think we've had a very thorough discussion. We had the public meeting last night. We've had many public meetings, and I think we've had a fair opportunity. I think there was a fair representation. We had the event, the notices went out. People had the opportunity. It was in 6 different languages. We had translators. We had a lot of opportunity. People had the opportunity to come out and speak out. We had a good crowd, but I wouldn't say that was an overwhelming amount of people that were asking for something to be done differently. So I am not supportive of taking more time and wasting money. Let's get to this. Let's, you know, what I learned about the thing in Revere was that if you don't take the moment, you lose out. And it's funny, sometimes that neighborhood in Revere, I hear like, gee, why didn't you have the bike path come this way? Well, if you made the right decision and pursued it 25 years ago, it might have turned out different. But if you don't seize the moment, and if we delay, it could be another 5 years. And for me, that means the kids at Salemwood School, some constituents, I was talking about a neighbor, their daughter just started kindergarten in Salemwood. She might go all the way through Salemwood and not have this resolved. Putting this out to vote's not going to dig up one shovelful of the contamination. It's just going to delay things. This is not a proposal to fund that extra cost. I mean, we're talking about, Mr. Nangle talked about this could be down as far as 15 feet. Instead of digging 15 inches, I mean, that's, 10 times the cost. And like I say, that is just, to me, the reason why we need to, go ahead. We've had enough public process on this, and I think that, the buck stops here. We are a representative democracy. We all get elected to make tough decisions. I think we've done a fair effort, and I appreciate the effort of last Thursday to have another meeting to hear from the public, but I think I'm convinced that there was nothing that came out of that meeting that convinced me that we should not go ahead with this project. And the other thing was that was the public expression. I'm hearing from people who not from the meeting that are just ready to get this going, and they don't want to spend their time and effort again to keep dragging this on. Let's get on with it. Thank you.
Karen Cohen Hayes.
Thank you. So I agree. We need to move, and we need to move on doing the right thing for Roosevelt Park. I have a couple of, I'm just thinking, especially as a lawyer, that Councilor Winslow, you would probably agree with this, but I could have put a panel up that said the exact opposite of what was said by the panel that you put up. We know this, right? If there's trials, there's two lawyers, one's fighting for the case, there's another lawyer fighting the exact opposite. So I know that that can be done, especially, with the experts that we had that weren't, some of them weren't from Malden, and then also that they're hired by the city, so, but I get your point, and I think that we need to do the right thing, and the right thing takes time. I think if this was done correctly from the day one, we wouldn't be here, right? So I think if we had gone out and reached out to the people of Roosevelt Park, they wouldn't be so frustrated and angry now, because they wouldn't be feeling like they were forcing, to put something in the backyard. Like if it was your backyard, you wouldn't want someone coming in there and telling you what to do in that backyard. And as far as Patchell Park, I'm glad you brought that up, because I did actually say we're putting in a CPC grant, that to do renovations, and I actually felt that I had to step back. We're putting it through, but I would rather step back, because it's a smaller park, and put money into Roosevelt Park and have that be grass. That's what I'd rather do. So that's how strongly I feel about that, and I think that the people, we could keep grabbing different people from different sides all day long, and that's why I think a ballot question would be great, because we'd really see where people stand on this. I think it's an important enough issue to have this go to the ballot, so.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Karen McDonald.
I want to make a comment and a suggestion. My comment is that, I think democracy is good, and I think that this issue has engaged a lot of people on all sides. And I would just want to make sure that if we actually had an election about this, it would resolve the issue. Like, what I don't want is an advisory election. The worst option is to have an election where people go to the polls, suggest have their voice heard, and then that doesn't determine the outcome. So I don't know if this accomplishes that or not. Just on the point of, remediating the soil, I think we received a letter from the CPC saying they would support additional funding to get down to, 36 inches of depth, which is sort of the deepest level ever recommended, regardless of surface, by Mass DEP. So I would certainly support if we wanted to consider that, but we don't have anything before us about that. So I'd like to suggest that rather than it be September or 2023, which is forever from now, that we just say in a special election that is done as soon as is possible based on the advice of the clerk's office. That would be my suggested language change.
I don't know what that is. Clerk, do you have any idea?
What's that? What's the question?
Special election.
You'd have to look at it. We just got through, we have an election coming up November 8th. Obviously, that would take precedence over this. You're talking holidays, you're talking...
Are we too late to add it to that ballot?
No, you can't. It's a state election. It's a city issue, so it'd have to be on a city ballot. City ballot, yeah.
Still got the floor, Councilor.
I'll make that as a motion.
So what's the motion?
The motion is, so it says, rather than ballot question on the 2023 municipal ballot, say a ballot question in a special election which would take place as soon as is declared feasible by the clerk's office.
Hold on.
There's a lot of things you have to work out. So the last special election, we had the vote election. Turnout was dismal. I think it was 2.5%. You had it at one location. The cost of this last election, if you're talking to have this, we have 27 precincts now. If you're talking about staff from 27 precincts for a special election for one item on a docket, you're talking a huge expense. My prediction would be you get hardly any turnout in a special election like this. No matter how much you think that people are into this, it's the people on that side, near Salem Wood, it's the youth groups. If you talk someone up maybe in Ward 3, West End, They're more concerned with their issues up there. So, what kind of election you talking about? Is it like the Volk election where you have one polling place, like City Hall? I mean, you couldn't open 27 polling locations for something like this. It just wouldn't make sense.
Right.
I mean, we did early voting. In 6 days of early voting, we got 243 people to vote. So the dynamics of having a special election and what you're going to get for a turnout, you really have to think about it. And I don't think it's something that we can decide tonight on the fly with all of a sudden having a conversation about it. You'd have to be looking at a lot of different things.
Can I just also ask, are there other elections between now and November 2023 that could be attached to?
No. Next election after November 8th would be the September primary. If there is one. Correct. You can have a discussion. I don't think you can decide that right here.
Right, I understand.
It's too much on the fly. There's a lot that goes into it, and I'm telling you, a special election, like for a certain item like this, you have to compare it to the vote thing when it was 2% turnout.
Still have the floor, Councilor.
Well, so the motion that I'm just going to go ahead and make a motion. We can take a vote on it. If it passes, we'll continue to talk about it. My motion would be to change the language to say, to place a ballot question, City of Malden place a ballot question as soon as is feasible, as certified by the city clerk's office.
Second? Councilor Karen McDonald's motion, seconded by Councilor O'Malley.
Can we have discussion on it?
You want to have a discussion, Council? I always ask the person to put the motion in.
I mean, why?
Hold on.
We're gonna vote on it.
You want it?
I'm sure. Let's
Okay.
talk about it.
All right. Isn't that a show? Here you go, Councilor Murphy.
Once again, this is just kicking the can down the road. We have had, I'm going to say, at least 9 meetings, between CPC hearings before the city council, hearings, meetings at the Salemwood School, outreach in multiple languages, door knocking in the neighborhood. We have beat this to death, okay? And I granted that you folks are new and you've come into the council now, but this has been going on for years now, okay? And to go out and try to educate the entire general populace of Malden, okay, on the issues of this project is almost impossible. It's not just turf versus grass. There is so much depth to this project that has taken, experts. I mean, Council Winslow and I have been listening to this and going over this material for years now, okay? It would do the general public and ourselves and our citizens a disservice to try to put something like this on the ballot without spending a tremendous amount of money trying to educate the entire population, of whom most aren't going to vote. I mean, I can't support that motion, and I'm actually just so disheartened by, I know some of this council feels strongly about this, but I feel just as strongly, and when you've worked as hard as Councilor Winslow and I have on this, for the good of the community, okay? We are not trying to hurt anybody. We are trying to make something better. We're trying to make something better in Ward 5, and I'm going to say Ward 6 because we're basically neighbors there, and Ward 7, because it's our kids who use that field, okay? Those are the kids that go to Salemwood. And then we have kids from all over the city who need that field for sports and athletics. We have the AD from the school department who is in charge of health and athletics, supporting this from day one, coming up and articulating over and over and over the benefit for this field and the benefit for turfing this field, okay, and having a multi-use field. We have the rec department coming in and saying, this is the right thing for the city, okay? It's not, and those people are from Malden, Councilor Cologne Hayes, okay? They are 100% into this project. They know it's the right thing to do, as Councilor Winslow and I know it's the right thing to do, okay? You put grass in that field. We talked tonight at the meeting I referred to earlier. We'll be putting a fence around that, Okay, and we won't be letting anybody on it if we put grass in it, because it'd have to breathe. And if you're gonna spend $4 million on a field that you can't access, that doesn't make a lot of sense from a fiscally responsible perspective, okay? I'm very disheartened that this topic is even on the agenda tonight and that we cannot move forward and get this project done. I would hope that none of you, when you have a project in your ward, will face the type of pushback from fellow councilors that we have faced on this.
Well, that was a lively discussion, Counselor. So we have to vote on Counselor McDonald's motion, seconded by...
Council Winslow wants to say
Oh,
something.
you want to speak on it too? Okay. I just want to let's go to Council. There's a bunch of lights, so let's go through this and then we'll vote on that motion. I'm sure there's going to be a lot. Counselor Winslow.
However speedy you vote, as I say, Councilor Murphy and I started working on this before I was even elected to council, when the open space and recreation plan. And I was a strong advocate in terms of making sure our open space and recreation plan had special outreach for environmental justice communities. So we had a big meeting at the YMCA, and that's where we first heard from the broadest part of the community of the need for this, and the need for the fact that our community has changed, and we don't play baseball so much. We play a lot more soccer and lacrosse, and those take more field space, and that field space, grass, those sports are very hard on grass. So, and we don't, and our survey from there, we surveyed the public as part of our open space and recreation plan. And that survey, the number one thing that came out on the survey was the need to have more multi-use fields. So we started there. And then we did then go to the Salemwood community. And we had a meeting, and we heard maybe we should do a better job of outreach. And Councilor Murphy did step up, and the mayor's office did step up, and we made a second effort. We had a second meeting. And I personally made sure I knocked on every door on Placedead Road and talked to neighbors, even talked to Laura Thompson, who's one of the opponents, and made sure they knew about the meeting and could answer any questions to me face to face. And we had that meeting. And then we had a long finance committee meeting when we were talking about this. So we've been talking about this for 5 years. I'm sorry that some of you weren't here and some of you didn't participate, but there's been that. And I think the other thing I really want to emphasize, you talk about elections. Councilor Murphy and I have been both on the ballot during those 5 years. Her twice on Ward 5, me both as councilor at large and Ward 6. Our opponents specifically said that they had a different opinion than we had. So this has been on the ballot twice, and both times Councilor Murphy and I have been reelected very substantially. So I think that's the other thing. It has, in fact, been through that. And I think the clerk is right. You're not going to get more participation than had happened in those. And people from the Friends of Roosevelt did go out and support our opponents. They did not win. And I think that's what's happening here, is that some people that, this is the democratic process. The democratic process has made a decision, and some folks just can't accept that. So I think that is the type of thing. Let's not keep dragging this out. We've had a couple election cycles. The voters have had opportunities to address this, to bring it up. I mean, I even remember Ms. Sullivan standing up in the middle of the debate and yelling at me about this. It was something very directed. And so this has been before the voters, and the voters out there have said, Councilor Murphy, Councilor Winslow, we're going to re-elect you. And so I think that is, to me, it's been on the ballot. I don't think we need to put it on some frivolous third time. The voters have spoken. We've had a lot of opportunities for people to speak up. It's time to get on. Let's not wait another 25 years. We know with Malden Hospital site, if you don't seize the day, things can slip away. This resolution we're putting on is an empty resolution. It doesn't lift an ounce of dirt. It doesn't plant a blade of grass. We do have a project that's ready to go, and let's get on with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Mandolinian.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I thought we had a really good community meeting last week. I thought both sides were very respectful. We kept to the time limit. Everybody had a chance to express themselves. I was a little surprised to then see this on the docket, because I did feel like it put us a little bit backwards. when I was new on the council, I voted against the Section 108 loan. I also got spoken to a little bit down because I was new, and so I just want to, I don't think we should be doing that to each other. I think we all are duly elected. I didn't like being spoken to that way. Our opinions all count. We're here now. I have to agree, I don't think an election is really the step that we need at this point. I think they're expensive. If you look at the numbers, we're a little bit of data geeks in my house. We've been running the numbers from even the primary that we had, where literally almost every available seat was open in the state right now, and the turnout was down drastically from 2 years ago when we had a pandemic. And, to Clerk Lucy's point, we had very few people show up to the early voting. We can unpack that. There's a lot of ways we could slice and dice that and figure out how we're going to get people to turn out. But I'm not confident that doing this will get us a representative opinion of where the city stands on this. But more importantly, I think if we're going to put our time and effort behind a ballot question, I'd personally like to see something more along the lines of raising our CPC percentage. We do not actually have enough money coming in to support all of our parks right now. We're having some difficult conversations. Councilor Cologne Hayes brought up Patchell. I don't know that we can afford to fund Patchell and a lot of other things. And in Councilor Simonelli's ward, we have some very deserving parks in some high-need neighborhoods that we are just not bringing in enough money to even do the basic improvements on, never mind the upkeep. So I think there's, I've been working on this project since my time on the MRA, and then when I joined the council, the Brockville was actually my idea probably 5+ years ago. There's always room to tweak and improve a project proposal, but this council has already taken our vote on that funding. I don't think a ballot question is actually going to further the conversation. I think we need to work together and figure out how we can get this project to remediate the contamination. When I think about if my kid went to the Salem Wood and they had never had recess all this time, these are real people. This is not, this is a real field with real kids who are gonna grow up and never actually get to walk on it regardless of what it's made of. And I think about that because I think a lot of times we talk in theoreticals, but there's real children that grow up in the blink of an eye, and we need to do right by them. There could be future tweaks to this project. I'm not saying that we have it all figured out the way that it is right now, but we need to remediate the contamination, move along, and start to have a productive conversation. And I just don't want us to keep going back, rewriting history on this. I don't think it's a productive space to be talking in. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Amanda Linehan. I have 6 lights on, so let's keep that in mind. So, Councilor Condon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't think I've ever seen a project that was handled the way this was handled. Very transparent, everything, both sides. Both sides got their say, like it should be. But you need to move on and get this field done. I look at Pearl Street Stadium with their turf. That was done 15, 16 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. And the turf looks fantastic. Don't think for 1 minute that Callahan Park is so clean too, because 2 big gas tanks sat on that, and that's all you did as a kid in Edgewood, is breathe that gas in. And when we practice on those practice fields, it was rocks, nails, whatever it was. Atlantic Woodworking was our practice field across the street. And that's what you played on. So, personally...
In the snow.
Right. But personally, looking back, playing sports, we would have killed to play on a field like this with artificial turf. You might be able to run. But, I want to compliment Councilor Murphy and Councilor Winslow. The way you've stood your ground, every one of your people you're representing should be proud. You stood your ground, you let people speak, you were respectful, all right, but you never backed down once, because you believe in this. I think we've all played on Roosevelt Park, played baseball. It's a mud bowl. That's the only way to describe that field. If you had any kind of rain, you'd be playing in mud. It needs to change for these kids. But you're a lot closer to it than I am. To put it on a ballot and have people from Ward 2 and Ward 1 and up in the West End vote for or against Roosevelt Park doesn't do it justice. So I say, no election. I say, let's move on and do the right thing for the kids.
Thank you, Council Cronin. So now there's only 2 lights that are not blinking. Councilor Karen Cologne Hayes. You're next.
Thank you. This will be my last time. So I just wanted to say, I'm sorry that this is taking like so personally. It's not personal at all. It's not about how hard you worked, for sure. Everybody knows you worked hard. It's not about that. As passionate as you both feel and as passionate as you feel, there's other people who feel passionate for the other side. So everybody fighting down until the end is the way things get done. And it's, this is coming from an activist and an advocate. I've done this all my life. This is what you do. You stand up for what you believe in and you fight for it. So I'm sorry that you feel like this is a personal attack, because it's not. And the people that, about putting it out for a vote, I'm thinking that a lot of this has come up also with people coming in from sports teams. They're not from around your area either. So voting, you can't have it both ways, right? So there's sports teams that are from all over the place. They're not from just around the Salem Wood. So if you put it out for a vote, it's going to be from all over the city too. So whatever the case is, or wherever this goes down, I just think that it's something that needs, you could say that you did all the meetings, which you did, and it was fine. It doesn't mean that people think it's right. You could have every meeting, you could have 50 meetings, and if the people still feel that that's not what they want in their neighborhood, that's not what they want in their neighborhood. End of the story. It's not about the meetings. If my father was sitting here, I'd fight him on it too, because he would never, he would be on my side, but it's not personal, right? It's just doing what we need to do. I'm hearing from as many people from wanting to do the right, or what they feel is the right thing, that you're probably feeling the opposite way. So let's not make it personal. It's about the city as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Simonelli.
Thank you, Mr. President. I actually wasn't really even going to speak on this, but enough is enough. I'm a Johnny-come-lately here, coming into council this past November. I know that this Roosevelt Park thing has been going on for a while. I got to walk the bike path and talk to some friends of the Roosevelt. They expressed to me their concerns, valid enough. I've seen the work that you both councilors have put into moving forward on the Roosevelt Park, so people can use it. So I just want to say a couple of things. In my neighborhood, we did a lot of parks over, as you know, when I was a councilor there before. And one of them was Maplewood Park, behind the projects, right? Nobody really knows about that or talks about it. And at first, we did the grass and the contamination. And you want to talk about contamination. The stuff that was put in gill whiners, that's what it was called, gillies, gill whiners behind the projects. Old trucks, contaminated barrels, some real nasty stuff. And they try, not like what's over at Roosevelt. I'm talking, this is some nasty stuff over there. Anyway, they capped it with grass. It didn't work. It rose up. Kids were starting to get affected from it, playing Pop Warner football. They had to close it down a little bit. And then the resolve to that was to cap it with turf. And there you have it as it is there now. And that brings in a couple other things. Turf field. We actually need some turf fields, from what Councilor Winslow was saying a few minutes ago. And as we're doing this park restoration and maintenance committee that we met on earlier tonight, we're identifying those things. That, there are some sports like soccer, for example, which is becoming a huge sport, is a huge sport. And we need a place for those folks to go. And they can't just go on grasses like Lincoln Commons and other fields like that, because they don't mean to, but they just tear it up and it becomes a mud bowl, or it becomes a, dust bowl, whether or not it's got irrigation in it. And, I hear the word environmental justice, right? Well, my neighborhood you're talking about over there, right? When it comes to environmental justice, isn't it environmental justice that those kids haven't been able to use that park in 2 years? You know, John Adams once said at the Continental Congress to his fellow congressmen when the American Revolution was starting, he said, it's kind of what Councilor Winslow said a few minutes ago, and that was, you know, we're elected to lead. Let's lead. You took the votes, you had the meetings, let's move forward, up or down. Let's stop prolonging this and let's move forward. Do what you're getting paid for. Take the hard votes and let's move. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilor O'Malley for the second time.
Yeah, and again, I do think that this is a unique situation because the city of Malden has very high special education rates. As Councilor Condon has stated and as Councilor Simonelli has stated, you know, there's a long history of our children playing in contamination. And the fact that I was one of those kids at Salem Wood School at the Roosevelt Park, the fact that this city and the school committee built Salem Wood School there, likely knew about the contamination and didn't take care of it then, and it has now become an issue again. I don't see how we can, in good conscience, continue down this road of not removing 3 feet of contamination, providing a 3-foot cap. If you look at River's Edge, that is a beautiful facility. They have 3 feet of soil because that is what is required to make it safe for people to actually enjoy natural environment. I think that this is something that's so important. It is a citywide issue because the Salem Wood School does not just serve the immediate wards that it's in and surrounds. It's a citywide school. It always has been. It's one of the most diverse schools in our city, if not the most diverse school in our city. You know, I'm not trying to place blame here. I'm just trying to get to what does the community want? And I agree with Councilor Linehan. If we need more funding, then maybe the 2023 ballot should be the ballot when we talk about getting more CPA funds to do parks over. Maybe it's the ballot that we talk about a debt exclusion to get the schools that we need and to make the investments that we need to make in our community. This is one of those investments. I cannot overemphasize the fact that Ward 7 and the surrounding wards are historically subjected to the worst contamination. They're historically subjected to the worst air pollution. They're historically subjected to the highest temperatures. To do this in this neighborhood is an injustice. I know that we come up on different spots here. I don't want to continue to hash this out. I agree it's taking a long time. I think we can all agree, let's start removing the 3 feet of soil. We can start that as soon as possible. As soon as HUD gives the go-ahead, let's start taking out the soil, and then no matter what we decide, whether it's grass or turf, we'll be able to implement it in an expedited time. The other thing is, okay, let's say we only remove 15 inches of soil, and then in 10 or 15 years from now, Roosevelt Park, because of the usage, is in the position or in the condition that Maplewood Park is in. Rather than replacing the turf field, I'd rather replace the turf field at Maplewood than this. And because at least if we actually do the 3 feet, in 10 years from now, if it ends up being turf at Roosevelt, then we can go back to grass. At least gives us the option in the future. But if in 10 or 15 years from now, we now have to dig up all of the 15 inches that you guys put down and then dig the rest of it to undo the mistake that we're making here tonight, that's going to cost us a lot more money. And I guarantee you that in 10 to 15 years, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to undo all the work that you were doing. Let's put it to the ballot. Let's solve it once and for all.
Councilor McDonald for the second time. I'm going to invoke the 3 rule from the president's chair on this topic for everybody, so I'm giving everybody their second warning. So nothing personal, but it's been debated.
This will be my last. I actually have a question for our city attorney. Attorney McNaught, my question while you're coming up is, in the universe that the council vote to put this on the ballot, and then it does in fact pass, even with 5% participation, to say that or say no to reject artificial turf, what is the impact of that? Does that control anything, or is it advisory?
From a legal point of view, it can't be anything but advisory.
So if
I
that
mean-
were, because the council's
You're
already
not
voted to
electing an
authorize
official.
that, it would
You're not
just
electing
be,
an official. It can't be anything, at least in my short moment of having this opportunity to answer your question that came up for the first time. Common sense says it can only be advisory. It can't tell the city, they can't tell the constituents what to do. So you have to go through the process that you choose, whatever it is. And if it's the special election, it's the choice that you make. If it's not a special election, move on.
thank you. I just wanted, I know that this issue covers a lot of ground. But the question that I'm trying to focus on is what would be the impact of the city council trying to put this on the ballot? Not about the soil removal, not about anything else. And I just, given the fact that we can't apparently hold an election until 2023, except at exorbitant cost and minimal participation, and that the impact of such an election would be advisory, I'm struggling with this as an approach. That's the end of, just to finish my comment, I will say I have been public that my preference is for a grass plan for the park, but I also respect the fact that a lot of work has gone into this, and I have gotten a lot of communication from both sides. I've tried to convey that this is my, that is what I would have liked to see. But I think that this issue is not before the council right now. The council, prior to my being here, voted on it, did its thing to authorize the project. It's not in our hands anymore. So I'm trying to figure out if this is a sort of valid approach to answering any of the questions at hand, and I'm struggling with that. That's the end of my comment. Thank you.
Councilman O'Malley, point of information.
Point of information, super quick. So our city charter provides for public participation, and I'm bringing it up right now. There are a couple different ways in which you can do that. One way is for the residents to collect signatures based on a certain amount of eligible voters. So if the residents go out and collect, I think it's like a little bit over 2,000 signatures in our community, they can put it on the ballot. And if a certain amount of residents vote for that, it is binding. They can do that, it's the referendum process. So if we put this on the ballot ourselves and they vote to the level that would make it binding, then it would be binding. That is our authority to circumvent having to allow our residents to go out and organize and collect 2,000 signatures in every ward. Not in every ward, but total across the city. So there's a way for the city, for the residents to do this, and it's for them to go out with clipboards and collect a ton of signatures from our residents. Or we could put it on the ballot. Either way, it's likely going to be on the ballot. The only difference is whether or not the community is going to organize and collect those thousands of signatures, or are we going to streamline it for them? I think we should streamline it for them and get out ahead of it. Thank you.
Councilman McDonald, you all set? I'm sorry, I shut it off.
Well, just to say, the way that this is written is, should the city of Malden install a turf field? So I don't understand that as being a binding question or relating to any particular act of the council. It's raised as an advisory, and this is an advisory question. So that was the nature of my question. And I didn't read anything that, I didn't read this as fitting into any particular part of the charter that would make that binding. So that is my understanding as affirmed by our city attorney.
Thank you, Council. Councilor Crowe for the first time.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think, it's been hotly debated right here again. And it has been, even before, I think in the past 5 years, when I first came on the council, there was a sort of a plan at one point, and it really still included some turfing, and it was sort of rejected because an entity was going to be footing a big part of the bill, and people were really upset that not Malden schools or Malden groups were going to be using that and that we would be restricted. So this has been, for the last 10 years, really the discussion. And so that got set aside, and then, again, people started looking again, and back to the open space plan said, again, we really need this, we really need this. So this has been going on for as long as I've been on the council, in one way, shape, or form. I think it has been debated. I think the contamination will be remediated. I think the project elements have been tweaked to kind of meet some of the needs and hear the concerns and the desires of the Salemwood School and some of those neighbors. So I don't think it should be going on the ballot. I think we should move forward. It's been going on for way too long. So.
Thank you, Councilor Crowe. No other lights. So I do have Councilor Carrie McDonald's motion, correct? Go ahead, Councilor.
I'm going to withdraw my motion in light of our clerk's comments.
I don't think you got I think you had a second, but I don't think we officially voted, so appreciate that. Any other lights? I will just say very briefly, I'm not going to debate this, but I think both sides are very passionate, and I think it was, well represented here as a council if this was going to be a sampling. I think we're not going to convince either side, and certainly know those individuals. I think Councilor Crowe, she hit the nail on the head. I've actually believed this is the third time we try to do it. The first time, I was actually asking the clerk. I think the Howard administration tried to do it the first time and couldn't get the numbers to work. The second time was when that entity came in and there was no choice. That was under Council Mayor Christensen. This is the third bite at the apple. So this has been around for a long, long time. I'm not going to convince anybody to either put grass or turf. I support the turf. I can tell you from a parent of a child who plays soccer, my son has never played on turf in the city of Malden other than Pine Banks, because there's not enough field space, and as the younger kids don't get the opportunity to play on turf in Malden because we only have Howard Park's for the older kids, and they share it, we know that. Pine Banks, we share with Melrose, and McDonald Stadium, I think only the high school kids get to play that because of Papuana, the multi-field use. My son's never played on turf. And and I'm fortunate enough, my son plays in a travel team. We go to all these communities. Every field they play on is turf. My son goes to Malden Catholic, Council O'Malley, so get the facts straight. So, he plays in Malden, today was his first game. He's never played in Malden youth soccer. He's never played on a field because we don't have enough turf space. That's my opinion. The other fact is, Council O'Malley likes to throw facts out. The dirtiest part of Malden is not Ward 7. The dirtiest part of Malden, unfortunately, is Ward 2 and Ward 1, because there were foundries there. Sterling Clark was there. In fact, if you look at M&T Bank, that was originally, it wasn't next to Midas Muffler. That was originally built as a dentist office, a glass company, then a dentist office, and then a bus went through the front door. And Starbucks wanted to go there 15 years ago. The reason why they didn't go there is because of the groundwater. If you look behind M&T Bank, there's actually a shed that's actually doing remediation work for the water. Idle Hands is there. So the dirtiest part of Malden, unfortunately, is Commercial Street, and we know why. There was gas tanks there when it was before National Grid. That's that whole area there. The Malden River is filled with creosote that bubbles up. We live in a community that's 100 years old, and it was a manufacturing facility. We don't have to go to Roosevelt to find that, unfortunately. Do we have to do a better job cleaning it up? Absolutely. Absolutely. But in that same tone, we should probably be ripping up every field and replacing them. And I agree with Council Winslow. I mean, are we going to spend all this money? A, we don't have the money. But I respect the both sides. I really do. And the final thing I will say is, before we take this vote, is Council O'Malley did mention there was a meeting next week, but Kathy Sullivan did send out. I haven't sent her this. I actually wrote it down as an email. For those who don't know, there's another open meeting law violation against the council attending that meeting. So I will be sending Kathy Sullivan, because she's always been very professional to me, and I will be very professional back to her. I will not be attending that meeting until the state tells me it's okay. So I find it very funny that you want participation, but then we have an individual who continues to say that we're doing open meeting law violations in public hearing. So as this council, until the state tells me it's okay to go, Kathy and to the rest of that group, I will not be attending. And it's an unfortunate set of circumstances, because I think it's good that the council gets to go on both sides. But it's also pretty damn disgusting, in my opinion, that we limit this by putting out these false open meeting law violations. Thank you. Let's call the vote. Clerk, let's do a roll call.
Do I have to read the motion again, or are we all good?
We all good with the motion?
Read it again, just to make sure.
Okay. It's the original paper.
Paper 374-22, order that the city of Malden place a ballot question on the 2023 municipal ballot, asking, should the city of Malden install an artificial turf field at Roosevelt Park by the Salem Wood School? A yes vote would support artificial turf, a no vote would reject artificial turf and support a grass field.
And a no vote here would reject this whole thing.
You say a no to this ballot question, paper 374.
Well, a yes vote would put it on the ballot, and no vote would be.
You're just reading the text.
I'm just-
That's the text of what the ballot question.
Yeah, that's the ballot question.
Oh, yeah.
A yes vote, you're saying you put it on the ballot,
Yes,
a no
yes,
vote,
okay,
no.
okay.
Yes, a yes vote is saying you put it on the ballot, a no vote is saying you don't put it on.
You don't put it on the ballot, correct.
Everybody got that?
So a no vote.
Clerk will call the roll.
Cologne Hayes. Yes. Condon. No. Crow. No. Linehan. No. McDonald. No. Murphy.
No.
O'Malley. Yes. Simonelli. No. Winslow. No. Spatafora.
Spatafora, no.
Fails 10 to 8. 2 to 8. 2 to 8. 8 to 2.
Next order of
Well,
business.
2 to 8 because of.
Next order of business.
Paper 375-22, order that City of Malden place a ballot question on 2023 municipal ballot asking should the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education revoke or not renew the charter of the Mystic Valley Regional Charter School. A yes vote would support revoking or not renewing the school's charter. A no vote would support the renewal of the school's charter.
Councilor O'Malley for the paper.
Well, this explains why I'm getting all this hate mail, huh? It's been quite a night. So, I'll be honest with you. In my opinion, Mystic Valley was specific, again, this is my opinion, was specifically funded as a vehicle to funnel public tax dollars out of Malden Public Schools into a unaccountable entity that has been a detriment to our community. They have taken millions of tax dollars. They have taken our fire stations. They've taken over our parks. We just talked about it. One of the reasons why Salem Wood School and Roosevelt Park project is being so adamantly opposed is because of potential involvement by Mystic Valley, because they were involved in the past. And I think people are skeptical whether or not they're involved now. Obviously, Trafton, Dever, there's been a lot that they've taken from our community centers, the old Emerson School. They used to have a lot of great social organizations out of that building. That's been taken from us, and schools. More recently, it's been pretty consistent that every couple of years you read about Malden in national and now international news about some bigoted policy or some horrible behavior that's coming out of the school that is creating a lot of trauma for students, particularly trauma for minority students from our community and from communities like Everett. Now that less and less people from Malden and surrounding communities are choosing to send their kids to this institution, they are now looking to expand into other communities like Woburn, which, as we know, is you have more and more people driving into our community, being bused into our community. It exacerbates traffic. One of the main drivers is the fact that the Mystic Valley Regional Charter School is such a driver of residents from outside of our community into our community at rush hour. I don't think that that's acceptable. I don't think the residents of Malden think that's acceptable. The state is increasingly coming down on them. Their charter is up for renewal. I wish we could do this sooner, but as we've heard, it's pretty difficult. We have really no oversight and no say when it comes to this, and I think the residents of Malden deserve an opportunity to let Mystic Valley and the state, DESE, know whether or not they think Mystic Valley is a benefit to our community or a detriment. I think it's very clear here this should go to the ballot. It would be non-binding because we have no oversight, but there's no other way for us to send a message to DESE that they need to get their act in order and bring this charter school in line. Now, if that involves clearing out the entire board, which is pretty nepotistic, everyone's related to everyone or related to a former board member, so be it. But I think that closing this institution is the only way for our community to start healing. And I think a great use of those buildings would be if we invested into special education. Rather than sending so many of our kids out of district, let's do a more intensive in-district special education facility, because that is one of the other things that they've been doing. They take our students, they take the money, they do not provide the adequate special education, and then they send them back to us, and now we have to catch up years of these children's lives. It's not fair to our community, it's not fair to these children. I hope you'll support putting this on the ballot. I move to adopt this order.
Councilor Condon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't support this at all. I don't know what you do with 600 Malden kids and just tell them you're going to Malden High School, you're going to our public schools. I don't know where you put them. I don't know who you're going to find to teach them. We're short of teachers right now. I mean, the charter school, and I'm familiar with it because I had 2 grandchildren go there. Charter school is not for everyone. I would never claim that. It serves a tremendous purpose in this community. Some of these kids really thrive in the charter school, and they go on to fantastic schools. And I think probably a good teacher made a very, very bad decision, okay? That you don't need to go to college to make the right decision in a case like that, what occurred at that school. All right, it was common sense. And it was a very, very bad decision. It was embarrassing to the school. It was embarrassing to everyone that has anything to do with the charter school. And we know that, and I'm sure they know that. And they have to somehow educate those teachers to make the right decisions and not be afraid to make a wrong decision, but just make a right decision with good common sense. And that's what happened there. And of course, the news gets a hold of it, and then you know what happens from there. But to just do away with the charter school, I don't think that's feasible. And you know, a lot of people dislike the charter school. There's no question about it. Public educators don't like the charter school. I don't like some of the things that the charter school does. I took one of my grandchildren out, just wasn't for her. The other one would have thrived, and she's now in the military. But, you know,
You all set?
Yeah, I'm all set.
Councilor Winslow.
Yeah, I mean, I know the charter school in many realms has been controversial, and I think the majority of people in Malden are concerned when we see things that happen that don't really reflect the broader value of Malden, of embracing inclusion, diversity, a lack of transparency and accountability. And so those are things that, you know, personally, you know, I don't like about the charter school. I think those type of things are best tried to address during the renewal process. And I mean, I think that come this next year, that process may be much more diligent on the charter school. The one thing I remember on the school committee at one point, school committee member Weldy put out a paper that talked about, you know, Malden, when he was growing up, had middle schools. And when we redid the schools in 1999, we went to a K-8 model. So he said, oh, maybe we should go back to middle school model. And I did, you know, I read a lot of academic papers about whether middle schools were better or K-8 schools were better. The research was neutral, that it really didn't seem to make a difference. But one of the things I did see out of that research was that the worst thing for a kid is to change schools a lot. That every time a kid changes school, it hurts their academics. So I think that's one of the things that, you know, I want to make sure as we, you know, the adult issue of the charter school and its purpose and making sure it reflects our values is something that we as adults, and we would need to have an accountable charter school board that raises those issues. I don't want to hurt the kids, and it's also the, you know, the financial issue. So I can't support this. I do support efforts to make sure the charter school reflects our values and has a board that is accountable to the people, that it's not. So so I think we have to work on that, but like I say, I don't think this is this is gonna address what we need to address, and it's not gonna be on the ballot till a year, which is probably after renewal. So I think we need to have that discussion, and you know, as people work on this and we focus on that, you know, I think it is, you know, working through the state process and speaking very directly is the way to do it, and working to make sure that there are serious reforms to the charter that make sure that the deficiencies in this charter school are addressed. And if not, then it maybe the charter's got to be given up. But I think that's the process to focus on. I mean, the other thing, just talking about balloting, back when cannabis was being voted, there was actually an initiative about expanding charter schools. And I know in Ward 6, 63% of the people opposed expanding charter schools. So there is a lot of support for not doing more, and we have had a vote that's reflected we can look at without having to put it on the ballot. So, so that's something to look at. There has been a vote where particularly the community, by a pretty good majority, did not want charter school expansion. And that was the statewide initiative, but that showed, and you know, so there is some reflection. It's a hold now, but I would expect that might have only increased at that point. So just a couple things. Thanks.
Councilor Kerry McDonald.
Councilor Winslow hit the nail on the head. DESI's website says that applications for 2023 renewals are due December 1, 2022, and should be decided by the board. They're up for the board for consideration no later than the end of February 2023. So we put something on the ballot for November. It's months too late. I also just want to say, so I can't support this. I also just want to say, I mean, I share the deep concerns about the ethics of the cultural assumptions that are brought to bear by the leadership of Mystic Valley Regional Charter School. I want to say, if anyone's watching this at this stage of the night, that for folks who have had really awful and traumatic experiences, especially based on your identity, that we believe you and we hear you. This council did, in ways that we best tried to comply with an open meeting law, put out a public statement that we, in fact, you know, call that out when that services. And these are things that I've said directly to the Mystic Valley Regional Charter School administration. So this is not news. It is a problem. I don't want my vote to be misconstrued about that. This is just, but this isn't. It's a totally inappropriate way, unfortunately, to address any of these concerns. And so, if there are other ways that we can act as a council, if we can act in concert, I'm happy to explore those. But I don't think this is not it.
Thank you, Council. Councilor Simonelli.
I'm all set.
Councilor O'Malley for the second time.
Yeah, I would just say that the charter is renewed every 5 years. So having this on the ballot and putting the question to the residents, while it may potentially not be in time for this one if they are renewed, but there's a chance they could be put on probation. There's a chance that the renewal could be tabled. And if worse comes to worse and it is renewed, it could be used in 5 years. I guess we would have time to do that, but in terms of the appropriateness of it, the only real option that we would have is to elect a legislature that would change the laws and allow for there to be some type of local control, some type of local participation. You know, even DESI, which is right down the street from us, they don't have to decide renewal in public. They don't have to have public hearings. It's a flaw in the system. But with this particular school, it's so bad that they don't even have the support of other charter schools. So, I do think it's an unusual circumstance, but as of the appropriateness, it's really the only option we have to allow our residents to be heard. I will be supporting it. I have moved it. I hope to have at least some support if possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. I'm going to move the question. Clerk, call the roll.
Do we have a second?
Do we have a second? We do not have a second. Okay, doesn't move forward. No second, we cannot proceed with the vote. Fails. Next order of business.
Paper 376-22, resolved that the Malden City Council objects to Orange Line closure process. The Malden City Council strongly objects to Massachusetts Bay Transit Authority's approach to closing the Orange Line for 1 month starting August 19, 2022 in Malden, home to 2 Orange Line stations. 40% of our residents do not own a car and depend on transit service. While we recognize and endorse the need to invest in the safety and performance of our transit system, the manner in which the MBTA made the decision has created great hardship for our community. Countless residents, especially those with the fewest financial resources, are struggling to get to work, make medical or court appointments, attend school, get children, or visit loved ones in need. Most concerning was the lack of advance information available in multiple languages, the timing of the closure at the start of the school year, and the fact that our elected leaders, including our mayor and state legislators, had to fight to get adequate shuttle bus and commuter rail coverage in the future. In the future, as it makes decisions about maintenance closures, we call on the MBTA to do the following. Number 1, work directly with local community leaders to decide when closures will take place in a way that minimizes impact. Number 2, provide information well in advance in multiple languages on how residents can navigate the closures. And number 3, establish funding to reimburse local governments and agencies as well as individual residents for hardships and additional expenses created by those closures.
First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a council rule that Councilor Karen McDonald has to get shorter resolves, because it's just, this is shorter than the last one, though, Councilor. You're getting better, but it's a good one, and I do want to add before I turn over, I do want to add, I didn't catch the email after, I do want to add my name to that resolve, but you got the longest ones. It's getting better.
I thought, what's this?
It is really the clerk who's got to read them, so. Councilor McDonald for the resolve.
Well, I'll keep it quick. I think that we all know what a terrible approach this has been for our community, even though we want people to live when they take the MBTA. That's important. We want the trains to not catch on fire. That's important. But this is flatly unacceptable, the way that they have approached this. It is my hope that this will encourage other municipalities to do the same. I mean, we pay millions and millions of dollars assessed because we have 2 Orange Line stops in this community, and we're just not consulted. I don't know what types of maintenance will be required in the future, but there will definitely be some, and we need a better process here. I did consult with our state delegation and our transportation planner about this resolve to make sure that we covered the right areas, and hopefully that'll just add a little more oomph to the advocacy with the MBTA to take these impacts seriously. Thank you.
Well said, Councilor. We got a plethora of lights. Councilor Karen Colon-Hayes. I'm sorry, it doesn't show all the council's names. I got to guess.
Thank you. No, this is great, and I just wanted to say, please add me on as a sponsor as well. I did also speak with many residents. Our family also, our commuter, use the commuter rail, and we're right by Oak Grove, so the amount of buses, and it's just been so busy over there. So I really feel for everybody working with this, and thanks for putting it forward, and please add me as a sponsor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Amanda Linehan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Councilor McDonald for drafting this and putting this on the docket. This was a no-brainer for me to co-sponsor. The train tracks pretty much divide Councilor O'Malley and I's wards from one another, and we draw heavily, as a lot of the city does, into the 2 stations. I'm kind of joking with the mayor and with our delegation that managing this has become, like, I guess, a 3rd full-time job when you add my day job, this job, and trying to manage both navigating it to get to work and also just dealing with the constituent concerns and then trying to work with the T. And it's just, as Councilor McDonald said, totally unacceptable. We had, I think, pretty reasonable requests in terms of keeping us in the loop, informing our residents, and they just really weren't willing to play ball on that. So, I understand and fully support the need for the work. I've been riding the T for 14 years, every day from Boston to Malden Center and back. The Orange Line has gotten markedly worse over the years. It's sorely, sorely needed. We do not have a transit system that we can depend on. But when you have a community that speaks as many languages as ours, that has as many transit-dependent folks, just to not get the word out early in multiple languages, or even to consult with local elected officials around things like what the shuttle bus route is, the impact to, folks that live by Oak Grove. We basically found out 2 days before this was gonna happen that they were gonna have to walk all the way around from Banks Place. That's a poorly lit, not accessible route, and, the T basically said to us, what's the big deal? And it's like, obviously you don't navigate this with a child or groceries or have to do it because you don't drive or someone's not picking you up. So just the disconnect between what's being planned and how it's been rolled out and what the day-to-day reality is for commuters has been pretty awful. So I would definitely, for any other community that may be facing this, when additional lines may have to shut down, I sure hope we can do better. And I do think that state leaders pay attention to resolves like this. And, we have to use our voices as elected officials, especially when we're just not being listened to. We have to advocate for our communities. And when, that communication isn't happening, it's just not acceptable. So thank you to the sponsor for putting this forward.
Thank you, Councilor. Another well-said statement. Councilor Winslow.
Yeah, I want to thank the sponsor for putting this forward, Councilor McDonald. And I want to thank, our state delegation, the mayor, staff, fellow councilors for being strong advocates in so many different ways on this. I think it is something that I've seen in the world of transportation that a community like Malden, we don't have people in the higher echelons of decision-making in our transportation, and there's disconnect between people who don't live in a transit-reliant community and who think of transit as a luxury almost, versus where it's essential to your daily living. And so I think that was what was really reflected, and I think we heard, very loud and clear. So I appreciate everybody's effort. I had my own issue when the bicycle route was crazy and was not very good for people around here. Not that it was the most important thing. I didn't really want to chime in on this stuff because the bus routes were so more important. But I know it's important to express this and continue to express it and continue to be strong voices. And it's one of the things I just had a communication with the mayor's office. Everett and Somerville have had someone on what's called the Boston Metropolitan Planning Organization. That's the organization that funds the T in Mass DOT. And at some point, I think we should, as a city, push to actually be on that. I think Everett's seat is coming up next year. It's the type of thing that, as you know, a lot of times if you don't show up to meetings, you don't get represented. So as we want to advocate for better transit, better roads, that's what I've seen in Somerville. Somerville's had so many improvements. They didn't get $1 billion in Somerville without having people there. So as we have to kick up our game, if we have to take our seat at the table if we want to be respected. So that's one of the things we have to think of going forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Winslow. Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, I too would like to be added as a sponsor. Thank you, Councilor McDonald, for putting this forward. I do agree with the fact that they did do this in one fell swoop and shut everything down for a month, but I do, I'd rather have seen them do it like that than try to do it piecemeal and just have, it go on for 12 months with never knowing
5
what
years.
day you're going to have to, get off at a station and take a bus to another station to continue your route. But the lack of, communication and advisement really was subpar.
Thank
So
you.
I think this is a great resolve.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Simonelli, quick.
Yeah, I'm going to be quick. I think this is a great resolve. I think everybody should be on it, Mr. President.
Yep. Councilor Connors put his name in it too. So on Councilor Karen McDonald's motion, seconded by Councilor Conan, all those in favor? Aye. It's a resolve. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Ayes have it. Next order of business. That was quick. Yes.
gonna send it to other
Yeah.
cities too.
Yeah, MBTA probably got delegation too.
Yeah, let's figure out who to send it to.
Yep. Send it to everybody.
Paper 379-22, resolve it as a sense of the Malden City Council that all city employees are to be treated with respect by all members of the council, free from hostile work environment, and are confident in the knowledge that carrying out their duties in good faith will not be met with retaliation, threats, and intimidation.
Yeah, I'll be brief. This is a resolve I want to put and hopefully get some support. I've talked to several members personally. There was an email that was generated during the summer recess on some behavior, and I thought it was a quick way to remind this council what I feel is to probably establish a code of conduct with inside our rules. Again, that's sitting inside Councilor Crow's docket. And just to remind the council, that we should treat one another, city staff, constituents, and others that come into contact with representing not only ourselves but the city of Malden in good faith. And it reflects, I think the hard work of the city council, and we always don't agree, but there has to be some civility in the way we work with each other, both in clearly defining our behaviors, manners, and just the courtesies that are suitable for any occasion. And that's all this is, practicing civility, professionalism, decorum. In any discussion, I think we did a great example of that happened at the Roosevelt meeting. I don't want to bring it up again, and I think it happened even tonight during the discussion. It's good to remind each other. And we don't want to have city employees feel threat or intimidated by the way we raise our voice or maybe words we choose to use. And I think we all went through some training, which was well received, but also from the professional standard, I do this thing every year with my company called unconscious bias. And, by using words or statements that you may or may not think are threats or reflections of bad behavior, other people might take them in the wrong way, and it really is an exercise that you have to practice. It gives you pause sometimes the way you use words, and this is just something I hope the whole city council can support. That's it. Any questions? Councilor Karen Colon-Hayes.
Yes. So you mentioned that we are going to be talking about sanctions or codes of conduct, and I think that that's where this probably would sit. I'm not sure with this wording, that this is like an HR kind of harassment type of policy that we already sign on and agree to. Without exactly specific examples, I don't know if I could support this because I'm not really fully understanding it. So one of the, what you just brought up, bias, until you said that, I would not have read that in here. I'm like, where did that come from? So it would, I don't think that this is a resolve, I think it should go to where we were talking about, with the codes of conduct. I think this is just, we need to really flesh out exactly what we're talking about in this, because we can get into some problems here with lack of words that can mean so many different things to so many, different people. I mean, I worked in the city, right, for 10 years. I've had some counselors push at me, intimidate, I went to HR. That's what you do. And I think that there definitely should be something. We should all be treating each other with respect, but I think that we really have to wordsmith this into something that we were already discussing with the codes of conduct that we had, because I'm not sure if this does anything.
Okay, thank you, Councilor. Councilor Crowe?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll add myself as a sponsor. And we will be taking up the rules, I promise, since it's been mentioned a couple times. I do think that sometimes just some of the way that we treat each other and some of our employees is really not the way anyone should be treated. I think that, people are working incredibly hard, and we're all asked to do so much more. And when people are feeling that it is not even beyond not appreciated, but really belittled in many ways, I've heard that from some employees, just the way some of the councils talk to them. I think we've seen it on sometimes when we see this in even here. When we have people at the podium or we're having a discussion about a topic or something, and it's just not the way that I want to conduct myself or I think the council should conduct themselves. I do think we do need code of conduct, sanctions, or some mechanism, because otherwise someone can go to HR. It's the elections that get us. I mean, it's not like we can, there's not a lot that can be done. So I think we need to police ourselves in a way that keeps us to the best and highest.
Thank you, Council. Council O'Malley.
Yeah, I'm fully in support of this as a general thing, and obviously this is something that is, this is a bare minimum that we should be treating our staff with respect. We all should be treating each other with respect. I'm not going to go through the long list of the indiscretions of counselors on this body right now. I think it would be inappropriate. I think it would go against the spirit of what we're talking about. But I do want to say, though, while it is important that we treat everyone with respect, it's also very important for us as elected officials who are accountable to the people to make sure that we're holding our staff accountable to follow the law. In the past decade or so, we have had public tax dollars stolen out of the Treasurer's Department. We've had scandal after scandal that I'm not going to list. We recently heard about some drugs being dealt in city buildings. And more recently, I think where this is coming out is that the Parks and Recreation Committee was disrupted at the direction of the council president, and the mayor and his staff helped disrupt that meeting. If a member of the city council or the mayor asks any city staff to help them break the law, you should say no. Like Councilor Cologne Hayes did when she was asked to do things that were going to violate children in our city's rights. So the notice to our staff is don't help people break the law, and don't break the law yourself. Don't be complicit. That's all I ask. You treat me with respect, and I will treat you with respect. It's a two-way street, but don't break the law. Don't follow our lead.
Anybody else? I just want to speak real quick. Council O'Malley, I'll say this again as clear and as black and white. This has nothing to do with the Parks and Recreation meeting. Second of all, you keep on inferring, because this is your political jester, that the mayor had something to do with that disruption of the meeting. I will say this again, as clear as I can. There was no discussion, there was no email between the mayor and myself on that meeting. I will take full responsibility, and I've said that in my complaint, and I will say it again. So stop inferring things that are not true. And the third thing I will say, we know what this is about. So we can sit up here and play cat and mouse games. There was an email that was generated from a city official that I have never seen in my time related to somebody on this council. And I'm not going to point them out. But to sit up here and say it's because of this and not this is a bold-faced lie. You're a very bright individual. There is no doubt about that. We know what this was about. And I try to be as professional as I could. Councilor Karen Cologne Hayes asked me about censuring, and I will give another history lesson with facts. I actually put that on the ballot, on the council 5 years ago when you were here, because you were on the council. Councilor Di Maria stopped that from happening. This was not my first attempt because everybody felt it was picking on a particular councilor. Well, 5 years later, we're back at that same spot, and we're talking about the same thing. It has nothing to do with the mayor. It has nothing to do with that meeting. We know what this is about. It's that simple. And if anybody up in this council didn't get that email, you're lying. Councilor Murphy.
Thank you. So having said all that, I would like to be added as a sponsor to this because I think that this is a great resolve. I think it basically, maybe it's not fleshed out as much as it will be once Councilor Crowe works on it, but I think what it does is it gives us the feel of what we want to do and how we want to move forward until Councilor Crowe's group actually comes up with the wording. So, I mean, in the spirit of what's written here, it's the truth. It's how we should be all acting. Everyone here should be treated with respect by all members of the city council. We should have a free from hostile work environment, and confident in the knowledge and employees are confident in the knowledge that carrying out their duties in good faith will not be met with retaliation, threats, or intimidation. I mean, it's just very basic, but it says it plain and clear, and we should move forward like this. So please add me as a sponsor on this, and let's vote this out.
The mic is off.
Oh, thank you. So based on the exchange that we just saw, I'm now going to back this because we obviously need something to try and keep professionalism, but I would love to add something to this, or if you're going to take it up in a committee, I feel it's too loose. It needs to also include, all of us as well, not just city employees, and maybe consequences. Maybe HR should be involved in this, but I really want to push for us to move forward with those. I know that the council president had said with our norms, and I've talked to him a couple of times, and you did say you're going to get that committee up, so hopefully we'll do it now, because I think that it's a much bigger issue. I could be added to this now, but I don't think it's enough.
Yep, and I had a conversation with a counselor on this committee about that committee, and we'll be discussing that moving forward. Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Condon.
Thank you, Mr. President. We're all city councilors, all right? We're no better than anybody in this building, all right? We come here once a week. The people that make this city go are all these different department heads and the people that work for them. So when I hear about any councilor disrespecting a department head, honestly, it just raises a hair on the back of my head, because I don't know who anybody thinks they are to be able to do that. Because if you're a city councilor, you don't have the right to abuse anybody, intimidate anybody, and if you do it, you get what you deserve. And there are people on this council that do that. Let's face it. And there's no need of it. I've been working in this building, not this building, other buildings, but for some 34 years. I've never had words with any department head. If you give respect, you get respect back. That's the way life works. That's all. I'll sponsor this too.
As a sponsor, let's move the question. I see no other lights. You want to do a roll call? It doesn't matter. Let's do a roll call. You've been doing it for everything else, so let's keep it.
Cologne Hayes.
Yes.
Condon.
Yes.
Crow.
Yes.
Linehan.
Yes.
McDonald.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes.
O'Malley. Simonelli. Yes. Winslow. Spatafora.
Spatafora, yes. Motion carries. Next order of business.
Paper number 380-22, committee will report out recommendations for council policies, for public access, and remote participation.
Councilor Amanda Linehan for the paper. Right? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President. Unfortunately, my laptop just died this moment. I have it as a backup on my, I stupidly didn't bring the cord. I don't know what I was thinking, looking at our docket. I obviously needed the cord tonight. So bear with me while I have to just read the motion. No, it's not. It's my other Dell. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you got, Council, you got to receive the committee report, then you can read.
Good. I don't need my laptop for that. Motion to receive the committee report.
On Councilor Amanda Linehan's motion to receive the committee report. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Now, Councilor.
All right, that'll buy me 1 minute to pull up my Google Docs on my phone. Luckily, I back everything up. So just as a point of order, so we're going to take the committee report, and then do we need to do outline the motions from our committee? Okay. So this is a long-awaited committee report from our Committee on Technology Policy. As you probably remember, this committee was formed in January by the council president with a charge to develop a policy around not just how our council engages with our own meetings and what we can do virtually, but what the public will have access to. So our committee met about 5 times this year. We met with various department heads, we met with UMA, just to get a sense of sort of what's the technology that's in the building. We have this beautiful new building. We're probably in the best shape of any municipality in the state in terms of being able to turn on a dime and record things and stream things without having to make an investment in any equipment. So in talking to our communications director, operations manager over at UMA, our IT director, and a series of other staff in City Hall who really know the equipment well and know what our software is and what we're capable of, we have come back with a series of motions that constitute a proposal for how our council, in our opinion, should function in this new world of hybrid meetings. And my hope is that we could read out the motions and then refer it to ordinance, where I think we could certainly have further discussion, but also if we are looking to adopt in as part of our rule book, that would be the place to do that. So if that all sounds good, I'm happy to pause and take questions, or go through and read the motions, which go into a little bit more detail about what we're actually proposing for the policy.
Councilor Karen Colon has a question. Do you have a question for Amanda, or do you want to wait? Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to call you Amanda. Council Linehan. So Council Linehan, there's no questions. I think she wants to, Karen Colon Hayes wants to speak after, so you want to continue?
That's fine, unless, do you need to ask? Okay. And I should mention that Councilor O'Malley and Councilor Colon Hayes are my fellow committee members. We did some brisk work this session, so I appreciate all the time that they put in. But let me go ahead and read the series of motions that we came up with to govern our technology policy. So the Committee on Technology Policy makes a motion that the Malden City Council adopt a new technology policy that will govern the public's remote access to our meetings, our own rights to participate virtually in all council meetings, and expectations around recording subcommittee meetings for archiving and publication online. Be it so moved that this technology policy allows city councilors to participate remotely in up to 3 regular council meetings per year by notifying the city clerk and sitting council president by the deadline to submit agenda items each week, and that the assigned clerk of each committee shall receive training and bear responsibility for creating and posting a remote participation link on the agenda when it is finalized, so long as a quorum of the council, as well as the chair, will be present in person as required by the Commonwealth's open meeting law. We also move that the City Council be obligated to provide a virtual public participation option for any public hearing scheduled for the full body or any subcommittee that is required to hold a hearing, e.g. public property. We move that these meetings take place in the council chambers whenever possible. Additionally, we make a further motion that the Committees on Finance and Rules and Ordinance be required to utilize existing City Hall hardware and software to record and then publicly post each of their committee meetings by the close of business of the final day of the same week the meeting has taken place, or by the following Monday at 5 p.m. for any meeting that takes place on a Thursday. Be it further moved that the city's IT and communications directors will share responsibility for archiving and managing the cloud storage for all digital recordings of virtual meetings of the full City Council and the Finance and Rules and Ordinance Committees, using whichever publicly procured platforms and systems they deem most appropriate and advantageous. We also move that the City Council reserve priority rights to committee rooms 105, 106, aka the council chambers, 108 and 113 on Tuesdays beginning at 5 p.m. while the council is in session, and that no other city board or commission may assume use of these rooms if it will prevent the recording of committee meetings affected by this technology policy. Finally, we move that this technology policy be included in the City Council rulebook upon its next update and in subsequent editions, and that this matter be expediently referred to the Council's Rules and Ordinance Committee for completion.
Okay.
Happy to take questions.
Councilor Karen Colon Hayes, you get the first one.
Thank you. So first of all, I want to thank Councilor Linehan. We all work, this committee, actually, I know we just said that wrong, Linehan. It's okay. Okay. So we all worked, it's late, we worked really hard, and I loved being part of this committee. It was smooth. We worked really well together. We did a lot of research. We had IT down there. We had the mayor's office. We had legal involved. We made sure that we took everything into consideration. So I really want to thank for all that hard work, but you definitely carried the most of that. So I want to thank you, and of course, I'm in full support. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor O'Malley.
Also in full support, I'd move to refer to ordinance, just to put it out there on the floor. That would be really the next step to amend our rules.
Yep. Anybody else? Okay, you know it's getting late. Council Murphy.
I'm just going to say, I sat in on the Technology Committee meeting this evening, and after reading the draft that was sent out to us by our clerk, and just wanted to say I was very impressed with the way the meeting went, and also just the draft. I'm going to call it a draft, but I don't think there's a lot of tweaking to be done to it. You folks did a really nice job, so looking forward to, I guess, well, I'm not in ordinance, I guess Councilor Crow's looking forward to working on it.
Hopefully, we did a lot of the work ahead of time.
Okay, seeing none and hearing none, I do want to say, I do want to thank the committee, certainly Council Linehan. We talked a lot over the summer break. I was actually in coordination, because this is still mandated under the emergency doctrine of the COVID. Charlie Baker, the governor, did extend it with the House and the Senate, the leadership. I think it's punted till April. Do I think there'll be a finalized document? I suspect, but speaking to Council Linehan, one of the challenges at the state level is they can't make a joint-wide or universal type of policy right now because they're having challenges actually with town halls. Cities are pretty easy because you have a council and you can have, it's a participation aspect of a town hall that's really challenging because, town meeting, yeah, because if you think about it, you could have thousands or hundreds of people in some towns that it'd be, I don't want to say it's impossible, but it could get lengthy, it could get expensive, but that's for the state to figure that out in the policy, and I think anybody in the private sectors, we've realized it's virtual, there's challenges there. I would say one of the other things is certainly a funding mechanism for some of these things, and I've been talking to Council Linehan again too, is we use Teams in my job, and we are a Microsoft shop here. We have access to Teams, and I've been talking to Anthony Rodriguez and a couple other people. Teams has translation services built into it, free. Now, I don't know how perfect they are. We use that because we have an operation in the Philippines. They can understand it because we can communicate to a certain degree, but it is one step better than what we have now, and that technology is built into Teams and we have it. So I think part of this process too is really pushing to get all of us off of Zoom and onto Teams because everything integrates to an office setting. So a lot of good work in the committee. I did read the draft and very impressed with, I think it's a good compromise because we do know that when somebody is remote, it is good and functional, but it does take up a little bit more work and participation everybody, so I do like the way we've come to that compromise. So I'm looking forward to it. We'll certainly get this to ordinance and put this high on the list to get this done by the end of the year, but I want to thank the committee, certainly Council Linehan taking my calls feverishly during the summer on getting something done, so thank you. So on Council Linehan's motion to send it to ordinance, seconded by Councilor Karen Colon-Hayes, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it, referred to ordinance. Next order of business.
We're almost clear, but there's a paper on here that we need to dispense.
Okay,
Chris.
do you want to, okay, Councilor Simonelli.
Thank you, Mr. President. I make a motion to discharge this paper to place on file.
Paper, you want to read the paper, clerk? Clerk will read the paper.
It's paper 303-22 that was tabled. It was mayoral appointment Helena Clark of 39 Acorn Street as a member of the License Board. Said term to commence upon confirmation by the City Council and to expire on June 1st, 2028 to fill a vacancy of Francis Lynn, who has stepped down from the board. This was actually the appointment. She could not take the position, so Paul Lee, who's on the docket today, got referred to license.
Okay, so we need to make a...
Untable, then place on file.
Motion.
Yep, on Councilor Simonelli, any discussion on that? Okay, on Councilor Simonelli's motion to take the paper from the table, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Paper is taken from the table.
Motion to place on file.
Now we get to take on Councilor Simonelli's, I'm sorry. Councilor O'Malley?
If we place it on file, couldn't that be confusing for like the record? Because it might look like, is there something we should do, like just withdraw it maybe? Is there a way we can withdraw it?
You could make a motion to not to take an appointment, right?
Well, if you place it on file, it
dies at the end of the year.
It really dies.
At the end of the year. Remember that we have that rule at the end of the year, you clean it up? I mean, you can vote not to take Helen Clark of 39 Acorn Street as the member of the license. I guess that would do the same thing.
When you place it on file, it just dies at the end, so you don't have to take a vote not to have her.
Because you know how we sometimes place like mayoral appointments on file? so it doesn't always look, and those ones are getting approved, so it could get a little confusing going back to the records.
But place on file would actually give this a history, because when you place it on file, it would be a record in legislature that the reasons why it wasn't, why it was
Great, I
placed on
guess
file.
we'll
Because
track
it's got a paper number,
Okay.
so it's a live, so it will.
I guess as long as the minutes say placed on file because this person was not appointed that. I mean-
It will actually absolutely say that.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
just so there's a history of it.
Thank you. Did she move? Is that the reason?
No, something to do with her
Okay.
employment.
Oh, no, that's fine. I didn't know if she moved. Because you have to be a resident to be on the places committee. So on Councilor no other discussion? Okay, on Councilor Simonelli's motion to place this paper on file, and the reason for Helen Clark of 39 Acorn Street for stepping down from the board. Place on file, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. The docket is clear. Personal privilege. First light is Councilor Mandelinehan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be brief. I just wanted to highlight that over the summer, while our council was in recess, the mayor and I co-hosted a very successful community meeting on the proposal for the Malden Hospital site. And just in case folks were away or missed it, that took place on July 19th. We have created, thanks to Ron Cochran in the mayor's office, a short link where folks can actually watch the recording if they weren't here. That link is going to be from cityofmalden.org/Malden Hospital Project. Thank you, Ron, for setting that up. We are working to book a second meeting. We were hoping to have it in September, but it's been very busy, particularly with this room. We really want to have a hybrid format so that I think we had almost 90 people at the last one, probably 60 of them were at home. So we definitely want to make sure that we're providing that option again. But date TBD, you can check that website or my council page on Facebook. We'll get it posted as soon as we can, and that's going to incorporate a lot of the feedback that folks gave on the proposal, on the design of the building itself. Of course, if you have any questions, just let me know. My phone and email are on the city website, and I am happy to talk about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Council. I'm clicking on it, Council Linehan. Thank you, Council Linehan. Councilor Winslow.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just a few things. The future Maplewood Square Committee now has sent out a survey, thanks to Councilor McDonald, Councilor Murphy for helping to work on that. So I'm working with the mayor's office to get that more widely distributed, and I'm also working to get that translated as well. So we'll be working on that, and that will help, create some groundwork for a visioning process that we'll have. I'm anticipating in the next early next year. The other thing is this Thursday at the Linden School at 6 o'clock is a meeting on the Broadway corridor planning process. So please come out for that. And then on Saturday, the 24th, Bike to the Sea is having a cleanup starting at Charles Rowe Company. So I'll invite people to come out to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Winslow. Councilor Carey McDonald.
A couple of climate action related updates. One is that we are moving ahead with our municipal electrical aggregation process. We're hoping to post the RFP to get the brokers in place who can lead us through the process and post that, in the next week or so, which will allow us to begin the process of constructing the filing, which we hope could happen, in a couple months after we get the broker on board. Over the summer, the mayor announced that we will be creating a climate action plan for the city, which I know I'm very excited about, helped push to make that happen. I know others are too, so I've been getting some questions about what this really means, so I just wanted to say briefly, we'll be working with, the current plan is to work with MAPC, but we haven't finalized our engagement with them to create a community process for input. Folks have asked me, they may be interested in being on an advisory committee. There will be applications. Strategic planning, community development staff are working on that right now, but we kind of need to nail down the process of working with our consultants. Then we will create that committee that is helping to guide the process. So there's going to be lots of opportunities for public input. And the overall plan, we anticipate focusing on greenhouse gas emissions, as well as climate resilience, building on the work in the city. And a lot of cities have done this recently, so we've got lots of good examples to draw on. So stay tuned and look for that. Lastly, I just want to say the city has created a Green Malden initiative, which really means we're trying to consolidate all the information into one well-maintained spot on the city website about all the different types of climate initiatives happening in our city departments. So you can look for that. I'm trying to get the city to create like a way so you can get updates when things are changed, you know, like an RSS feed by email or something like that. So lots of good work happening, a lot of appreciation to our city staff for heading these pieces up, and we'll keep you updated. More to come. Thank you.
So I do want to just say, Public Safety Day is here again, October 9th, 11 to 2 p.m. at the Linen School. That's with the Malden Fire Department, the Malden Police Department. Usually we get, you know, state agencies to come down, a really good event for the community. It started probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago and really continues. There'll be pumpkins and pizza and the standard stuff. So the chief did send it out to everyone to make sure everybody saw that. So look forward to that. The mayor and I had a weekly discussion. I don't know if this committee knows, but the cemetery director, Jimmy Cahill, has retired and rather quickly. He is no longer in that role, and we are looking to fill that, so there might be some ordinance changes coming down. It's really a decision by the cemetery board, but I wanted to let everybody know, he gave a 3-day notice. Was it 4?
It was, well, Thursday to the following Friday.
Okay, 5 days. Don't know why, can't ask that question, but just wanted everybody give an update on that in terms of he is retired, so wish Jimmy good luck in his retirement. Want to give a wish to our past clerk, past compliance hearing director, Sheriff Romano, who had back surgery, still recovering, and hopefully speedy recovery. And a couple of you do know, but I'm going to embarrass him. Unfortunately, an email was submitted to me this morning that our clerk, Greg Lucy, will be retiring on January 4th. While I am certainly excited for him, I am not excited about the process. It feels like every 3 years we have to go through that. And just like when we get one that we feel that we can certainly work with and trust and collaborate with, he's going to retire. So I wish him and his wife and his family a long, enduring retirement. What I will say, though, it has been a joy to work with Clerk Lucy, Counsel Lucy, even Bartender Lucy. I think we worked together, right? So it goes back a long time. And anybody who knows the Lucy family certainly knows they're an institution in this community, but more importantly, anybody that knows Greg Lucy, he is an individual that his integrity, his persona, his truthfulness, and just his entire... Well, listen, I want to make sure. But I just, it really sucks for the council, and it sucks for the community to lose Greg on the committee. And so we will, Greg gave us a heads up early so we can start that process. But just when you think the summer break is over, it is over, and we have some roles and responsibilities to fill. So I look forward to that in the Personnel Department getting ready on that. So, Greg, I wish you luck and enjoy retirement. Council Conant, I didn't see your light on. You going to say anything?
Yes. I'm going to miss Mr. Lucy.
I'll see you next week.
Oh, no, I'll see you next week.
Are you sure?
I'll be here next week.
He might forget.
He's been
4 months to think of what you want to say.
This is
been
good.
the-
It's been a long night.
He's been the second best city clerk I ever served.
Under Karen?
Karen's the
Listen,
first.
That's tough shoes to fill, I know that.
He's done a great job, and we're all going to miss him for sure. But I did want to say a couple of things about
he says.
Jimmy Cahill. Some of the projects that he started and completed in the cemetery, I think we can all be proud of. The Vietnam Memorial, the Korean, the Wishing Well, Mayor Conway, World War, what'd you say? World War II. World War II.
That's Bellrock.
That's Bellrock.
Just keep it going, though. You're on a roll.
But I remember when we built the World War I memorial, we were in deep trouble. And if it wasn't for Jimmy and Chucky stepping up the last month, I don't know if we ever would have completed that. Certainly not on time, but he worked really hard on that. And when it come time to thank him, I called him Jim Hennessy. Oh, that was a mistake. No, but Jimmy Cahill, he did a great job for us on that World War I memorial.
Thank you,
So
Council.
thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Council.
You'll be missed.
Council Simmons.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, I just want to say, thanks to Director Jim Cahill. I remember he was appointed when I was on the council the last time, and he's done a fantastic job. Thanks for my glasses. He's done a great job down there at the cemetery. We all have family buried in there, most of us, and go up there quite often. And he's always been welcoming to me as a person and as a director up there, and anytime I needed any help and I asked him, he always came through for it. So I just want to wish him luck on his retirement. He's just a classy guy, and he's just the epitome of Malden. So I just want to wish him luck. Thank you, Mr. President.
Council Murphy wants to end it? Council Murphy.
I will, and I just ended, Jim Cahill is been in charge of the cemetery for many, many years now, and he has a love of Forest Hill Cemetery and the other cemeteries in the city that he's responsible for. I can't say enough about how he has taken care of not only folks who have passed, but the folks who go in on a daily basis to visit their loved ones, and everyone who uses the cemetery is just a passive recreation, whether it's walking, pushing a baby carriage, or admiring the pond. He truly looked at the cemetery as his own backyard and did everything he could to take care of it and make sure that it was an enjoyment for all of Malden. I will miss him. I will miss him calling Forest Street. He'll call me on the phone and say, after a snowstorm, Murphy's Way is plowed so everyone could get to the T. So it's with sadness that I see him go, but with great happiness that I see him move on to the next phase of his life with his wife. So, thank you.
That said, I will take Councilor Murphy's motion adjourned, seconded by Councilor McDonald. All in favor?